This is the tutorial that will teach you the skills that most of the companies today are looking for by building this full stack job portal app called Hired, with features like authentication with Google and custom email password, posting jobs as a recruiter or applying to jobs as a candidate, tracking the status of your application. We will discuss how you can upload resumes through storage buckets along with this fully responsive and beautiful user interface that we will be building using React.js and Shadcn UI. So right off the bat, you can see we have a professional and modern looking landing page over here with this beautiful carousel at the bottom. And if we scroll down, you're gonna see we have FAQs over here which tells user more about the platform and how to use this platform. Now if we go up, we have two options over here. We can either find jobs or we can post a new job. So let's click on find jobs and we'll be prompted with this login modal. So we can either continue with Google or we can go on and sign up with email address and passwords. So let's click on continue with Google and you're gonna see we have an onboarding screen now where we need to choose if we are a candidate or we are a recruiter. So let's choose that I'm a candidate and we are successfully in. Now you can see we have this profile picture over here. If I click on it, we have multiple different options like my jobs, saved jobs, manage account, sign out, and all of this is made possible by using Clerk. And I'll show you how you can use that to implement an efficient user authentication inside of your app. So, okay. We can see we are on this latest jobs page and we can see all of the latest jobs that have been posted on this platform. We can also go on and wishlist some job if we like any job. So let's click on wishlist and you can see the heart turns red. All right. So now if I click on more details, you can see we can see more details about this job. We can see how many people have applied for this job and this is still open. Let's click on apply and we have a apply job drawer open at the bottom. Let's add our details. Let's say if I'm 3 years of experience, skills, since this is for data scientist role, let's just say I know R and Python. Let's click on postgraduate and we can choose the file for our resume. Let's choose our resume and click on apply. And you can see we have successfully applied for this job. Awesome. Now, if I go back to the jobs page, you can see we have multiple different filters over here as well. Let's say if I'm from Delhi and I want job in Delhi, you can see it has filtered the jobs for it. If I want a job at Amazon, it's gonna filter further for this. And we can also click on this clear filter to clear the filters. Let's say if I want backend developer jobs and click on search, yep, you can see we have backend developer jobs over here as well. Let's clear the filters. Now, if you remember, we wishlisted these jobs, right? We can go on over here, click on save jobs, and we can see all of our saved jobs over here as well. If I click on my jobs, I can see how many jobs I've applied to. So you can see I've applied to 2 jobs over here. One at Netflix, one at Apple. Amazing. And you can also track the status. So for this job, I'm currently interviewing and for this job, I've recently applied, right? So the status is in initial stage. Now let's go on and see how this looks like from a recruiter's perspective. All right, now I've logged into another ID as you can see over here. Let's click on post a job and you can see it's gonna ask me, I'm a candidate or a recruiter. So this time I'm gonna choose the recruiter and you're gonna see this will route us to post a job page, just like this. And to handle all of the forms in this app, we will be using React Hook Form along with the Zod validation library. Let's try to post a job over here. Let's say front-end developer. I'm gonna add a description over here. Let's choose a job location. Let's say Goa. For companies, you can see you can either choose the companies which are already here or you can click on add company and add a new company. Let's just say roadside coder. We can also choose the logo for the company. There we go. Let's click on add. And now you'll see we will have this roadside coder in this list. Okay, let's choose this. And now this is the fun part. This right here, you can add the requirements and you can add them in a markdown format. So if I say dash, you can see this has created a bullet point over here. If I say hash and write something like responsibilities, and you can see this will appear as a heading. If I add some points like A, B, C, right? Any smaller heading by using double hash XYZ and click on submit. And if you scroll down, you can see our job post has been added right here. We can click on more details and you can see our markdown format is being displayed just the way we added it over here. And obviously, since we posted this job, so we cannot apply on it, we can click on over here. We can change the hiring status if we are still hiring or the hiring has been closed. Okay, let's go and check out our other jobs by clicking on this My Jobs tab. And you can see when we click on this tab, we won't see our application since we are recruiter, right? So we will see our jobs just like this, and we can delete the jobs from over here as well. So if I click on this data scientist on the one that candidate applied, so we can see all of the applications right over here. And we can change the application status from over here with respect to what we have been communicating with the candidate, right? So if I click on interviewing, this will be changed to interviewing. And now if I go back to the candidate's profile, on this page, you can see the status has been changed to interviewing. So yeah, this is an amazing project for your resume, and trust me, after you've made this resume and you're applying to the jobs, trust me, your interviewer will be truly impressed when they see this type of project on your resume or your portfolio. Alright, so I've opened VS Code over here, and let's go on and set up a new React.js app. So I'm going to open my terminal and say npm create Vite at latest and press enter. And that's going to ask us to proceed. Yes. It's going to ask us the project name. So I'm going to press dot because I want to create my project in this folder. If you want to create another folder, you can just give it that name. Package name, I'll just keep job portal tutorial. Let's select React and JavaScript. And there we go. We have a brand new React.js app initialized over here. Let's just remove the things that we won't need, like this assets folder, everything inside of app.css, everything inside of index.css, and inside of app.jsx. I'm going to remove everything, and I'll have a div which will say subscribe to Roadside Coder, which you should if you haven't yet. So let's just remove all of these things as well. Great. Let's go on and try to run this. But before that, we need to do npm install so that it installs all of the dependencies that are inside of this package.json file, like React and Vite and like ESLint, etc. Right? Okay, let's wait. All right, there we go. Let's say npm run dev, and we will start running our React.js app successfully on localhost 5173, just like this. Great. All right, now what we want to do, we want to install ShadCN UI. Now what is that? So let's see, ShadCN UI. Okay, so this is beautifully designed components that you can copy and paste into your apps. So keep in mind, ShadCN is not a component library. It enables us to build our app by providing us pre-designed components, which we can copy and paste inside of our app, right? Let's click on components, or actually before that, let's click on docs and install this first. So let's click on installation, and we're going to choose Vite, and let's follow these steps. So first of all, npm create Vite at latest. We've already done this. Now we want to install Tailwind CSS because this library is built on top of Tailwind. So let's do npm install this. So I'm going to open a new terminal and paste it over here. So it will install Tailwind CSS, Post CSS, and Auto Prefixer. Okay. Meanwhile, this is installing. I'm going to copy this command. So what this will do, it will create a tailwind.config.js and postcss.config.js, which will enable us to write Tailwind inside of our app. So now I can paste it over here, press enter, and now you're gonna notice over here, yep, we have this postcss.config and tailwind.config. Great. Now next thing, it's asking us to create a tsconfig.json. Now we don't have tsconfig.json. It's because we are not using TypeScript. So instead we can create jsconfig.json. And what we can do, we can just copy this code and paste it right over here for its configuration. Okay. Now we want to update vite.config.ts. Okay, so here's that file, vite.config.ts, and it's asking us to add types/node. And we don't need to actually do this because again, we're not using TypeScript. But we can do this right over here. We need to import path from path. And actually, let's just go on and copy this whole file and paste it over here. It just adds this path over here. Next, now what we want to do, we need to do npx ShadCN UI at latest init. Now we want to actually install ShadCN UI. So let's copy this and paste it over here. And now you're going to see it's going to ask us a few questions related to our app. So proceed, yes. So would you like to use TypeScript? So we're not using TypeScript, so I'm going to say no. Which style would you like to choose? I'm going to say default. Which color? Let's go with slate. Where is your global CSS file? So our global CSS file is this index.css, right? So I'll say src/index.css. Press enter. Would you like to use CSS variables? Yes. Are you using a custom Tailwind? No, we're not using. So where is your Tailwind config.json? It's just located right over here, right? So just press enter. Configure the import alias. No. configure the import as for utils. No, we're not gonna change anything there. Are you using React server components? No, we're not using server components, so I'll say no. And in the end, just press enter. And it's gonna initialize everything inside of your project and install shadcn successfully so that you can start getting the components and adding them inside of your project. And you can see success. Great. Now, how does shadcn UI works? Let's see. So if I go back, let me just close both of these files. And if I go back, let's see, we have a lot of components over here. If I click on this button component, you can see we have this button component pre-made. And if you scroll down, you're going to see we have a lot of variants for this button, like the secondary, destructive, outline, etc. So how do we install this button? We need to copy this command over here, and you're going to see what it does. So when I paste and enter it, it says installing button. And this code has been added right over here inside of the src. Inside of the components, we have this UI folder, and inside this we have this button.jsx. And if we have a closer look on this button, this has a bunch of variants, just like we saw: default, destructive, outline, and Tailwind classes for all of these variants are written over here. We have a bunch of different sizes: small, large, icon, and the default are both of the default variants and default sizes, right? And we have the actual button component over here with all of these props that it receives. Okay, now we don't need to worry about all of these things. Obviously, if you want to configure this, you can make change inside this code right here, and we will do that as we go on forward in this video. But for now, what you can do, you can take this button and let's go to app.jsx, and I'll just paste it as a component over here. And actually this will say, let's just say login, and save it. And you can see we have a login button right over here. Amazing. Now, apart from this button, we're gonna be needing a bunch of different components over here. So just like you saw at the beginning of this tutorial, inside of our app, we have bunch of different components that we're using. Like you can see over here, this carousel component, this comes from shadcn UI. This button comes from shadcn UI. If we scroll down, this accordion comes from shadcn UI, right? So we have a lot of such components that we are going to be using inside of our app, like this card component as well. So let's go on and install all of this component at the beginning so that later on we don't have to put in a lot of efforts fetching all of them one by one, right? So let's see. So I'll say npx shadcn UI at latest and add. Let's start adding the components that we are going to be needing. First of all, it's going to be accordion. So I'll just copy the accordion, paste it. Then we have already installed button. We're gonna be needing the carousel that we saw. So I'll just copy the carousel, paste the carousel over here. I'm gonna be needing a card component. So a card component that looks something like this. Copy this up, paste it over here. I'm gonna be needing a drawer component. So if you remember, when we wanted to apply for a job, we clicked on a button and it opened a drawer like this. So I'll take this drawer and say drawer. I would need input tags for my forms. So if I go to input, you can see these input tags. Let's copy the input. Next, I would need the labels for these input, which look something like this. Let's copy the label. Then you may have seen in some forms we had radio groups as well, like they look something like this, radio component, like radio inputs. So let's take the radio group, paste it over here. Don't worry, we have just a couple of more left. Then we'll take this select component for selecting our filters. If you remember, let's take this select. And at last, I'm going to be needing a text area. So yeah, here it is, which we'll be using inside of our post job page, right? So paste it over here and press enter and sit back and relax. It's going to be installing all of these components inside of this /UI over here. As you can see, it has started adding all of them one by one. There we go. It has installed all of these components over here. So now, as you already know, our app is going to be a multi-page app, right? Not a single page app. So we're going to be needing the routing inside of our app. And to do routing, we have something called React Router DOM. So I'm going to say npm install React Router DOM. And make sure you're using the same version as me. If your version is incompatible, just go to my package.json and you can see over here I'm using 6.26. So if you want, you can install it like React Router DOM at 6.26, right? And just in case if you're watching this tutorial in future. All right, now let's go on and define all of the pages of our application and plan our app, right? So over here in the app.jsx, let's just remove this button and this div
over here as well. And right here, I'll say const router equals create browser router, and this will take an array, and inside this we can define all of our routes of our app. So I'll take an object over here, and this will take a lot of things like element. So element is basically what is going to be rendering inside of our app. So first of all, I will render a layout which will, wrap whole of our app. So I'll say app layout, and this app layout obviously doesn't exist yet. So let's just go on and create it. So I'll create a new folder over here called layout. Inside of this, I'll create a new file called app-layout.jsx. I'll say RAFCE app layout. Let's just copy this and import it right over here. And now we're gonna say children, and this will be an array, and we will define all of our routes inside of it. Like for example, homepage. So if I want to define homepage, I'll say path slash, and this will also take the element, which let's just say landing page, right? So let's create the landing page. I'll create a new folder for our pages. This is not a convention, but it's a good practice to keep all of these separate, right? So I'll just create a new file called landing.jsx, RAFCE landing. And if you don't know how I did this RAFCE right over here, I have this extension called ES7 plus React Redux React Native snippet. So you can install that as well, right? So let's just import it. Actually, I'll just call this landing page. Okay. All right. Now what we can do, we can take this router and we can go down over here, and inside the return, I'll say route provider, and we need to import it from React Router DOM, just like this. And this will take our router. So router equals router. Okay, let's see what do we have in here. We don't have anything. Oh yeah, we have app layout. But why can't we see this landing page inside of it? This is in this slash route, right? In the root of our app. So what do we need to do? We need to go inside of we need to go inside of app layout, and we need to have a component over here called outlet. So it comes from React Router DOM. So what this will do is we can write any code around this outlet, and that will act as a layout, and all of our routes are going to be rendered at this particular place. So you can see below app layout, we have our landing page. Great. Let's create other pages as well. So let's just duplicate this and say onboarding. Let's call this onboarding. I'll get a new page over here, onboarding.jsx, RAFCE onboarding. Okay, let's import it. And now if we go to slash onboarding, you're gonna see this will be constant, and below this we have onboarding. Let's go on and create other pages as well. So let's create the page for our job listing. So I'll say job-listing.jsx, job listing. We're gonna have a page just for our job. So job.jsx, so I'll just call it job page. We will have a page for my jobs or my applications. So my jobs.jsx, my jobs, a post for posting the jobs. So post job.jsx, post job, and a page where we will see all of our saved jobs. So I'll say saved-job.jsx, save job. Okay, cool. Let's just go on and quickly import them inside of app.jsx. So let's duplicate all of these multiple times. First of all, I'll have jobs page, which will display all of the current jobs. So job listing. Then we will have a single job page. So this will be /job/ID. So we won't be knowing what is going to be the particular job ID, right? So that's why we're going to be using the ID variable over here, job page. Okay. Then we will have post job, where we will be posting the job, right? So post job, we will have a saved -job page, saved job. Oops, this should be saved jobs. So saved jobs. Okay, we will have a page where we will see all of my created jobs, my jobs, and yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Great. So we've set up all of the routes inside of our app. Now let's go on and work on our landing page, the UI of our landing page, right? So I'll go inside of this app layout.jsx. And right here, I'll remove this app layout. So first of all, if you remember, our app had a beautiful grid-like background. So for that, I'll create a div over here, and this will have a class name of grid-background. Now this grid background right here doesn't exist in Tailwind or anywhere, right? So we need to write custom classes for this, and this is the only place where we will be writing custom classes. So inside of app.css, I'll say .grid background. And here, first of all, our background will be fixed, right? Position fixed, top left 0, width 100%, and height to be 100%, right? Now, over here, we need to add some linear gradient. And trust me, this is something that you don't really need to worry about much, because what I have done over here, I've just straight up went to ChatGPT and just asked it to give me a grid background, right? So obviously no one is able to write this much of a complex CSS in real world, right? All of us do Google. So simply I have taken this code from ChatGPT and just say and just added it right over here, and the size of the grid will be 50 pixels, and then we're going to add the background size. The pointer events are going to be none, and z index is going to be -1 because we want it to be at the back all the time. So don't worry about this CSS much, and I'll say grid background, and we'll have a pseudo tag of before, and this will provide us with vignette type effect. So let me show you. So if I go back, you can see this is the effect that we'll be having. If I remove this, you're gonna see this will be a plane. But right now we have grids over here, but we cannot see because we are currently on the light mode of ShadCN UI. So if I go to ShadCN UI's documentation, we have two modes over here. And if I go over here in the index.css, you can see we have a root and we have a dark mode. So what we want to do, we want dark mode for our app. So I'll go over here and say dark mode, and this has everything that we need to set up the dark mode, right? All it's saying is we need to just paste this theme provider.jsx or tsx inside of our project. So let's just copy this file, and these things will be done just once, right? So inside of the components, I'll create a new file called theme-provider.jsx and just paste the code over here, and they've written it in a TypeScript format. So I'll just remove all of these types over here, this thing from here, and the types of the props from over here as well, from use state, and I think yeah, over here as well. Let's see. Yep, I think all of them have been removed. Great. Oops, I think I removed this initial state as well. Yeah, this is the initial state. So let's just paste it over here, remove this. Okay, so this is the theme provider.jsx, and what we need to do after it, we need to import it inside of app.jsx, and we need to wrap whole of our app with this. Okay, let's take this and go to app.jsx over here in the return. Let's paste it here, and let's just move it over here. Let's remove this children and import this theme provider right here. Okay, let's go on over here, and you can see we have our dark theme applied over here. It looks beautiful because we have given this default theme as dark. If we want, we can give some other theme over here as well, like light, right? So great, let's just remove this semicolon. All right, so now we have set up most of the things related to our UI. So let's start working on our app. So I'll go inside of app-layout.jsx, and we will wrap whole of our routes. So all of our routes will be rendered over here, right? So I'll wrap all of these routes inside of our div and give some styling around them. So let's just say main, actually good for semantics, and I'll say class name, and I'll give min-h-screen, and you can see I'm getting all those Tailwind suggestions over here. It's because I've installed this Tailwind CSS IntelliSense extension, so you can do that as well, right? So now we will have at least the minimum screen of the height of the screen, that is 100 VH, and we can give the container class, which will create some padding around this. You can see according to the screen size, it will help us create the breakpoints. Okay, now above this outlet, I'll have a header component, and let's create this header inside of our components. So I'll say new header.jsx, RAFCE header. Let's import it right here, and let's go back. Oops, it says accordion must be used within accordion. Have I imported it somewhere? Oh, sorry, my bad. I've imported header from there. So make sure you import it from /component/header. Okay, let's see now. Yep, great. Let's go to our home page itself. Now below this, I'm gonna have a footer for our app. So I'll have a div, and I'll say made with love by Roadside Coder. Let's give this a class name, padding to be 10. Text is going to be at the center. Background, let's say gray, gray 800. Margin top is going to be 10. Let's see. So if I scroll down, you can see we have this footer over here as well. Now for our header, we need to add the logo for our app, right? Now you can choose any logo of your app. It's your choice. I have generated it using the AI. So if I go to github.com/piyush-yon/job portal, you can find this link in the description down below. Go to public folder, and over here you can see we have this logo.png. What I'll do, I'll just take this file and move it inside of my public folder right here. If you want, you can generate your own image using some AI tool, or you can design your own logo. I've designed this. If you want, you can just go on and download it from right over here. Okay. And also we have one more thing so that we don't have to come back. We have this banner.jpg. So let's just download it. We're going to be needing this inside of our landing page. So let's move it inside of our public folder as well. Great. Now to design our header inside of this div, I'll have a nav tag. Let's just wrap this with empty fragments. So yeah, nav tag, and inside this I'll have a link tag, and this link tag is going to be coming from React Router DOM. Inside of this link tag, I'm going to keep my logo. So I'll have an image tag over here. src will be /logo.png. If we save this and go back inside of we can see this right here, but we don't want it so big. So class name is going to be height 20, which is going to be around 80 pixels. So that looks much better. Let's give this nav some classes. So padding y to be 4, that is vertical padding. Display to be flex. Justify to be between, because I'm gonna have more elements over here, right? That login button, so that they are aligned on both the ways. So items to be center, so that they're vertically aligned in the center. So let's see. That looks much better. So I'm gonna have a button over here as well for login. So I'll say login, and variant is going to be outline. Let's see. That looks awesome. Soon we will be adding the user authentication when we click on this login button over here. Okay. And before doing that, let's go on and set up our database and then continue with building our landing page. So for database, I'm going to be using something called as Supabase. And trust me, Supabase makes building our backend so easy. Build in a weekend, scale to millions. Let's click on start your project. Let's continue logging with GitHub, or you can use whatever you like. There we go. We are in. Let's click on new project, or you can create a new organization first. Let's name my organization as Roadside Coder. Type of organization personal, and we're gonna use the free plan. Let's click on create organization. Now it's gonna ask us to create a project, so I'll just name my project as hired. Database password, let's just generate a password over here, and we can select the region here. So let's just select South Asia, which is closest to us, and create new project. All right, there we go. It's setting up the project for us. Let's just wait. There we go. Now we can click on this connect button over here and click on app frameworks, select React and Vite, and it's gonna give us the instructions to connect React app with Supabase. So in the .env file, we need to add this code. So let's copy it, go back to our app, and I'll create inside of the root, I'll create a new file called .env and paste both of these over here. Okay, now go back and you can see it has given us this file as well. So inside of utils, we're supposed to create a supabase.ts file. Let's copy it up. Let's create a utils folder. So utils inside of src, and I'll get a new file called supabase.js and paste it right over here. All right, so now you can see in this file, we have imported both of our environment variables, and you can see it's using a package called add supabase/supabase-js, which is something that we're supposed to install. So let me just copy it and say npm install this package right here, and this will enable us to make the API calls to our backend by writing the logic. Now, under normal circumstances, this is all that we would need to write inside of this file. But since we will be using Clerk for our user authentication, we would need to make a little bit change in this file as well. So we'll come back to this again. But let's go on and set up our Clerk account. And over here, you can see the most comprehensive user management platform. Let's click on get started and log into our account. So I'll click on GitHub, and we are successfully logged in. Let's create a new app. You can see I've already created one app over here. Let's name it Hired. And I'm going to be using email and Google login. You can see this will look something like this. Let's click on create application and we are in. Now we just have to do a couple of steps over here to set up React app with Clerk. So if we see, we have to install this package over here. So let's install this package. Okay. And we have to add this environment variable, and this is the last environment variable that we're supposed to add. So inside of our .env, let's paste this and save it. And we're not going to touch this file again. If we scroll further down, we have to make some changes inside of our main.tsx, or in our case main.jsx. So we have to add this publishable key, and we have to add this check if it's present or not. Okay. And if we scroll down, we have to wrap our app using this Clerk provider. Okay, let's just take this code and replace our main.jsx with this code. And let's just remove this exclamation mark. And instead of tsx, I'll say jsx over here. Okay, cool. Now let me show you how easy it is to set up user authentication using Clerk. So if I just copy this code right here, and actually one more thing, I'll just go to user authentication, click on email, phone, username. I'm going to be using email address and password. We're not going to be using email verification code for now. If you want, you can just, add this to verify the users, right? And go inside of here in the settings. Let's turn it off and continue. Okay, let's save this. Now, since we have copied that code, this code right here, let me show you. If I go to our header component, and instead of this login, for now, I'll just have this. Let's import this sign out, sign in button, and user button, right? So basically when the user is signed out, they will see sign in button. If the user is signed in, they will see the user button. And if I save it and now go back to my app, we have the sign in button. If I click on it, it's going to take us on this login flow. Let's click on continue with Google, and it's going to log in with our Google account right here. And great, you can see that is all we needed to do to add the user authentication. If I click on it over here, you can see we have this user drop down that comes right out of the box from Clerk. If I click on manage account, we have all of this modal where we can update our profile pic, and actually we can have a setting to add our first name and last name. So if I go on over here, let's say user can set their first and last name. Now if I go on over here and click on manage account, you're gonna see you can customize your first name and last name as well. Amazing. But there's one problem. You can see this is in light mode, right? Since our app is in dark mode, we want this to be in dark mode as well. So we have to install one more package here, add clerk/themes. And now go back to this main.jsx, and here there is a prop called appearance. Inside of this, we have base theme, and we will set this theme to shades of purple. There are more themes as well. You can go to the docs of Clerk to explore this, right? And now if I click here, yep, you can see we have dark theme right here. Amazing. Now you might be thinking, we have Supabase as our database and Clerk as our authentication. So how are we going to connect both of these? So if you just go to Google and search connect Supabase with Clerk, you're going to find this blog right over here. And I will provide this link in the description as well. Right, so if we scroll down, so it's first asking us to create a JWT template in Clerk. Okay, let's go to Clerk, and we have JWT templates over here. Let's click on it. Click on new template and select Supabase. And over here, we're supposed to provide a signing key, which will come from Supabase. So let's see how we can get that. Okay, we don't need to worry about all of these things. So sign JWT with Supabase secret. So we need to go to API and we can find JWT secret. Okay, let's go to, where is it, project settings? Yeah, API, and we can find the JWT secret over here. Let's reveal and copy this, and now we can go back over here and paste this secret key right here, and let's click on save. There we go. If I click on it, we have this signing key. And yeah, we've already done all of these things. If I scroll down, we have added all of these .envs. Now it's gonna tell us to install Supabase and configure Supabase. Okay, we have followed all of these things, and yeah, this is the main thing. You have to take this code and you have to add it to Supabase. So if you go to Supabase and go to this SQL editor and paste it right over here, and this will be helpful for us for checking or comparing the user ID that is coming from front end with the Clerk, right? So just paste it over here and click on run, and it's gonna say no rows returned, and it will initialize this function. And I'll show you where we will be using this function soon in this tutorial. And we can close that blog over there. And now in the front end, go to the supabase.js, and over here, instead of this, we have to create a new function. So const supabase client equals async supabase access token. We will be sending a token every single time to compare, or just to see if the user is authorized to access that particular thing or not. Okay, let's just move this in here. We're going to provide both of these things and a third options, which will say global, and we will be providing this token inside of our headers now. So we are providing this explicitly. If we were not using Clerk, then we wouldn't need to do this. So I'll say headers, and inside of our object authorization, and we're going to be providing a bearer token. So bearer, and the token is this supabase access token. And let's just export it right here, and we need to return this supabase, return supabase. Okay, and yeah, that is all we would need to do to set up Supabase with Clerk. So let's close all of these things. We're not going to be needing them. And now finally go on and build our landing page. So inside of the header, let's just remove these for now and bring back our login button. I'm going to be coming back to this. We need to add some further configuration to this later on. Okay, let's close that header and let's go to our landing page. So inside of our landing page over here, I'll have a main tag, and inside of this, I'll have multiple different sections. So in the first section, I'm going to be rendering our heading, which will say find your dream job and get hired, right? So this is what we'll be rendering over here. Below this section, I'm going to be rendering both of my buttons and the carousel. Buttons and carousel. Below this, I'll have the banner image that you saw. And finally, below that, I'll have another section for the two cards. And actually, below that, we have an accordion as well, right? So accordion. Okay, let's start building this. So first of all, we need to say find your dream job and get hired. So if you remember, and get hired was in the next line, and we have a hired logo over there as well. So I'll keep that inside of a span. I'll say and get, and I'll add an image tag here. Image tag will say src equals /logo.png, and I'll have an alt tag, and I think I forgot to add the alt tag on the logo, so make sure you add this. So I'll say hired logo. Let's have a class name for styles, so I'll say h14 when it's in the smaller screens. If it's bigger than smaller screens, I'll say h to be 24, and if it's bigger than larger screens, I'll say h to be 32. So let me show you. If I go on over here and if I reduce the screen size, you can see it's adjusting to the screen size. So this is how you add the breakpoints by using sm, lg, etc. Now for our main, I'll give some class name of display flex, flex direction to be column, gap to be 10, which is going to be around 40 pixels between them. If the screen size is more than smaller screen, I'm going to say gap to be 20. I'll have a padding vertical to be 10. And if it's a bigger screen, I'll say padding vertical to be 20. Okay. Now for this section right here, I'll keep it in the center, right? So I'll say text to be center. Let's go back and see. Okay, we can see this right here. And obviously we need to make this a little bit bigger so that we can match with this logo. So inside of our h1, I'll have a class name of display flex, flex direction to be column, items to be center, and justify to be center, so that they are on the very center, just like that, right? Now we're going to be adding some custom Tailwind classes, and how we can do this. So let's just say gradient title, and to do this, let's just copy this, and we're going to go to our index.css. So index.css, and at the very bottom, you can see we have some more custom styles over here. Let's just ignore them. I'm going to say at layer utilities. And inside this, I'll have a gradient class name, and I'll say apply. So whatever we write inside of over here is going to be applied wherever we'll be using this gradient, right? So I'll say background gradient to bottom right. So it's going to start from the top left and it's going to go to bottom right. So from gray 500 color, it will go through gray 200 color and it will go to white. Okay, so this is basically a gradient class. I'm going to define one more class, called gradient title that we were using over here, right? So gradient title, and this will be the actual title. So I'll say add apply, and it's going to use this gradient, text transparent, and background clip to be text. Okay, let's go on and see. So, and actually let's just first add a text to be for Excel over here, and font to be extra, no, not extra light, extra bold. Okay, let's see. Yep, that looks much better, but we need to make this text even more bigger. This is good for smaller screen, but for larger screen, I'm gonna say if the screen size bigger than small, I'll say text to be 6XL. If it's bigger than large screen, I'll say text to be 8XL. Okay, let's see. Yep, that looks much better. Let's make these text a little bit closer to each other. So I'll say tracking tighter and padding vertical to be 4. Let's see now. Okay, let's move this logo to right here. So over here in this pan, I'll have class name of display flex, items to be center, some gap between this of 2, and in the larger screen, I have gap of 6. Okay, let's see. Yeah, that looks much better. You can see it's already starting to look much more professional and modern. Now below this, I'm gonna have a line which will say explore thousands of job listing or find the perfect candidate. So let's just add that over here below this. Below the H1, I'll have a P tag which will say explore thousands of job listing or find the perfect candidate with text gray of 300. In the smaller screen, we won't show any margin, but in larger screen, we will say margin top of 4, and we will say text to be extra small. And in the larger screen, we'll say text to be extra large, just like this. Let's check our responsiveness. Okay, yep, that's pretty good, I would say. Great. Now below this, let's add both of our buttons. So right here in the buttons section, and actually I'm going to be keeping the carousel outside of it, not inside. So inside this div, I'm going to have a link tag which will take me to /jobs, and inside this I'm going to have the button. So button which will say find jobs. Let's just replicate it, and this one is going to say post job, and this will take me to post job route. Let's see. Yeah, if I click on find jobs, we can see we are in /jobs. Let's go back, post job. Okay, awesome. But we need to add some styling to these, right? And we need to add blue style to this find jobs, but that doesn't exist inside of the Shatcn UI's library, right? So, or Shatcn UI's pre-existing code. So now we would need to add some custom styles to this, and actually the size, Excel size to this as well, because this doesn't have an Excel size. You can see it just has till the large size. So inside the variant, I'm going to be saying add background blue to 500, and on hover it will be background blue to 600. For the size, I'm going to be adding a Excel size here, height to be 14, screens bigger than smaller screens, I'm going to have height of 16, it will be rounded medium, padding horizontal to be 14, text to be large in the smaller screens, and in the bigger screens we'll have text to be XL and font to be bold. Okay, let's save this. And now if I go back and say variant to be blue, and now you're gonna see this has blue variant. Let's just add the size to be XL, and now it's in the XL size. Let's copy this and provide it to this one as well, and I'll give this variant to be destructive. Awesome, this looks great. For the div, I'll have a class name which will say flex, gap to be 6, and justify content to be center, so that they are on very center. Awesome. Now let's go on and add that carousel over here that we saw, right? And for that, actually we would need some images, company images, and we would need to prepare a JSON data, right, with all the name of the companies and the images as well. So let's just I've done that heavy lifting for you so that you don't have to create that JSON. So just go to this public folder over here, and you can see I've provided all of these images. So just click on over here and download all of these images one by one and keep them inside of a companies folder inside of this public folder over here. So let's just create a new folder, companies. There we go. I've downloaded all of these images right over here. Let's close this. Now let's go to our landing page, and to render all of these over here, we need to prepare a JSON data. So I'll create a folder inside of the SRC called data, and I'll add a new file called companies.json. and I'll add this data right over here. It's a very simple JSON with name of the company, path to that company inside of the public folder, and some ID. Now we're going to be using this and rendering all of them inside of a carousel. So right here, since we have already installed carousel from shadcn UI, we won't need to install it again. So let's actually go back to shadcn UI and see how we can use a carousel component. So carousel, and if we scroll down, we would need a carousel that looks something like this, right? So code, okay, we would need to add a carousel component, and inside this carousel content where we will be rendering all of this. Let's just take this. This will be helpful for us, and paste it right here. Now we won't be needing this next and previous buttons, so let's remove that and import all of the other things. So let's just import, and make sure you're importing from /component/UI. This card we won't be needing for now, so let's just remove this from here. Okay, let's remove this prop. We will say width to be full and some padding of vertical to be 10, so that we have some gap on top and bottom. And actually let's just get rid of this array from here, and inside this we will be writing our carousel. So I'll take that companies JSON. So companies, let's just import that JSON first. So import companies from /data/companies.json. Okay, so now we'll say companies.map, and inside this map I'll have the name, the ID, and the image, or actually it was the path, not the image. And we can return the carousel item here, inside of which we will be rendering our images. So image will be src equals the path. Let's just save it. And what do we need? Oh, we need to add the key, right? Since we are doing the map. So key equals ID. Let's just provide the alt tag to be the name. And let's go back and see how it looks right now. Okay, this is massive. So we would need to, but yeah, we have the carousel over here. Great. We would need to make them smaller. So for the image, I'll be adding the class name of height to be 9. In the bigger screen, height will be 14 and object contain. Okay, but we can see we have just one element per slide. We need to change that. So for that, for each carousel item, I'll say class name to be basis of 1/3 for smaller screens, and for larger screens, we will show 6 items. So 1/6. Let's see. Okay, awesome. This looks great. Now let's just provide some gap between them. So for here in the carousel content, I'll say display flex, some gap of 5 between them, and in the larger screen gap of 20, and items to be vertically centered, right? So yeah, great. Now they're looking much better, but you can see they're not auto scrolling, right? So what do we need for that? Let's go back to the docs and see. So do we have something for auto scroll? And yes, we do. You can see we have auto scrolling right here, and it says that we need to check the Embla carousel docs that they're using over here, right? So they use importing this autoplay function from this library. So let's just install this library. Npm install Embla carousel autoplay, and we need to just use this autoplay just like this. So let's just take this autoplay function, and we have to provide it as plugins. Okay, so over here I'll say plugins to be inside of an array. We're supposed to provide this autoplay, right? Let's import this autoplay from this library that we just installed. Let's remove this stop on interaction, and delay we're going to be keeping as 2 seconds. Okay, let's see what happened. Missing /component/autoplay. Okay. Oh, we're not supposed to do this. Let's see now. And yeah, we can see our carousel is working successfully. Amazing. Now below this, I'm going to add that banner that we saw earlier, right? So below this carousel right here, I'm going to say image and src equals /banner. Oops, src banner.jpg. If you want, you can convert it to PNG or some other format. Class name to be width full, and actually WebP is generally more suitable for the images on the internet, right? So let's see. Yep, awesome. And I generated this image using an AI tool. So if you want a tutorial where I explain how you can generate these logos and these images using AI, just let me know in the comments down below. And below this, I'm gonna have those 2 cards which will say search and apply for job or post jobs, right? So inside of here, we're gonna be using 2 card components, right? So how do you use card components? Let's go on and see inside of ShadCN UI. So card, and yeah, something like this. So let's scroll down, and yeah, let's copy this up and paste it over here. We're not going to be needing the card footer, so let's remove that. Let's import all of these things, card title, and we're not going to be needing the description, card header, and card. Let's see. Yeah, something like this. And we're going to be having 2 such cards, just like that. Let's give this section some styles. Grid calls 1 in the smaller screens. In the larger screens, I'm going to have grid calls 2 and some gap of 4 between them. So yep, something like that. Let's add the content inside of them. So for card title, I'll say for job seekers. For description, let's just remove this paragraph. Instead, I'll directly say search and apply for jobs, track applications, and more. For this other card, I'll say it's for employers as well, who can post jobs, manage application, and find best candidates. Yep, something like that. Awesome. You can also make these bold if you like. Now below this, I'm going to be adding the accordion or the FAQs for our app, right? So let's just prepare the data for it. So I'll say new file, faq.json, and let's just have some question and answers over here. If you want, you can customize it according to yourself, or you can take these question and answers from my GitHub repository. So yeah, let's just use them. Let's just import this first over here. So instead of companies, now I'll say FAQs, or I think it was FAQ, right? So we're going to be rendering all of these FAQ inside of an accordion, right? So let's see how an accordion works in ShadCN UI. So I'll go to accordion, and you scroll down, yeah, something like that. So let's just copy it up and paste it right here. Let's import all of these things. So from /component, make sure you're importing everything from /component. Let me just double check. Yes, we are doing that. So accordion trigger and accordion content. Okay, let's go back, and we can see we have this accordion right here, but we would need multiple accordions here. So let's render all of our FAQs. So inside of the accordion, I'll say FAQ, and let's just rename this FAQ to FAQs. So FAQs dot map. Inside this, I'll put this accordion item, and we need one single FAQ and the index. Index will be using this as a key. So key equals index, and value is going to be item -1. So instead of -1, I'll just say index +1, right? So I'll just put a backtick around it, and inside of curly braces, and instead of this, I'll say index +1. Let's just return this, return, and this needs to be outside. Okay. For the accordion trigger, I'll add the question. So I'll say FAQ dot question, and for the accordion content, I'll say FAQ dot answer. Let's see how this looks like. Great, our FAQs are rendered here successfully. This looks beautiful, and with this we have completed our landing page. Okay, so now let's go on and implement our user authentication and make this login button work properly this time. So I'll go back to my code and go to header.jsx. So I'm gonna uncomment this out now. And now when we are signed out, I'll show this button instead of this sign in button. We don't want to go into a separate page. And when we are signed in, we're gonna show user button. But we don't want to show the user button just like this. We want to add some additional options over here as well. But so let's just come back to this later on. First, let's just add the functionality of logging in. So I'll keep this inside of a separate div, this whole thing. And I'll say class name flex and gap to be 8. It's because we're going to show another button over here for posting the job. So link to post job, right? / post job. And inside this, I'm gonna have a button with variant of destructive and class name of rounded full. And this will simply say post a job. Let's save it and see. Yeah, obviously we're not logged in yet, so we won't be able to see it. So let's just put it outside for now. Yeah, something like this. We will also have an icon over here. So I'll just say pen box, and you have to import it from Lucid React. Lucid React is installed along with ShadCN UI. Size is going to be 20, and class name is going to be margin right of 2. So yeah, like that. Let's bring it back inside of over here, sign in. And also one more thing, we will only show this button if the user is a recruiter, right? So let's just say, I'll just add a comment over here, add a condition here, right? All right, now what I want to do, when I click on this login, I want to show a modal. So for that, I'll be creating a state over here, and to create a state, I'm going to use state, which will be, let's say, show sign in. Initial value will be false. Okay. Now on this button over here, I'll say on click, and whenever we click on it, I'll say set show sign in to be true. Okay. Let's use this state somewhere. So below our nav, right here, I'm gonna say if show sign in is true, then show this div right here. And inside this div, simply I'm gonna add this sign in. So this sign in will come from clerk/clerk React, and this will take a few props. So I'll say sign up force redirect URL. So basically, when the user has signed up, where do we want them to go? I want them to go to onboarding screen. So onboarding, and fallback redirect URL after sign in is also going to be /onboarding. So this is very important, else the app will redirect it to some other URL. Okay, let's check it out. Let's see if it is working. Let's click on login, and yep, we can see this modal right here, but it's disturbing our UI. So let's just add some styles over here in this div. So class name is equals, position is going to be fixed, inset is going to be 0, display is going to be flex, items are going to be center, and justify is going to be center so that it's aligned at the very middle of our screen. Background is going to be black, but we want the opacity to be less so that we can see other stuff as well. Background opacity to be 50. Okay, like that. Let's see. Yep, that is what we want. And when we click on outside of over here, we want them we want this to go away, right? So I'll just say on click, let's say handle overlay click. Let's create this function over here, const handle overlay click, and this will take the event, and simply inside this I'll say if event.target is equals to e.current target, then set show sign in is equals to false, right? If we are just clicking on the background, which this should be false. So if I click on over here, nothing will happen. If I click on over here, then this will be closed. Great. We want to implement one more functionality over here. So let's say if user is on some route, let's say onboarding or some job page, right? But user has not logged in currently. So what we want them to do, we want them to route to home page with a search param called sign-in to be true. And if this is true, we want a login pop-up to automatically come over here without us pressing login, right? So what I will do, I'll say use search params, and it will come from React Router DOM. It will give us two things, just like use state, search and set search. Below this, I'll say use effect, and inside this use effect over here, I'll say if search dot get, that is in the search param, we have something called as sign-in. Then we will say set show sign in to be true. We will make our state true, and this will happen when this search param changes, right? And also when we are closing it, we want the set search to be empty. This set search param to be empty. So I'll just keep it right here. And yeah, I think this should do it. Let's see if I refresh this. Sorry. This should be question mark sign-in equals true. Press enter, and you're gonna see, yep, we get this pop-up automatically right here. Great. Now what if we have to sign up with email? Let's just try it out, right? So let's click on sign up, and you can see now it has routed us to another page. So let's just say a username, let's add the email address and add some password and continue. And there we go. You can see we are logged in by using email as well. We can see this post a job button as well. If we click on manage account, let's try to update our profile pic. Okay, let's click on save. Oh, I think it's already saved. So yeah, you can see we have changed our profile pic, but this is quite small right now. Let's make it a little bit bigger and add a few more options. So apart from both of these, I want my jobs and saved jobs option over here as well. So this user button right over here, Instead of self-closing tag, this will now contain some things inside of it as well. But let's just give it some appearance and elements, and we want to change the avatar box. And you can see if I press colon and have an object over here and press control space, you can see there are a bunch of different things that you can customize over here. So I will say avatar box, and I want avatar box to have width of 10 and height of 10. Let's see. Yep, now it's bigger. Great. How do we add more options over here? So inside of this, and you can find this in the documentation of Clerk as well, right? You just need to say user button dot menu items, and you can add further menu items inside of it. For a single menu item, you can say user button dot link, and this will be a self-closing tag. This will take a bunch of props over here, like label. So label will be my jobs. Then we will have a label icon, which let's just say briefcase business icon with size of 15. And we'll have the href, that is where are we supposed to go. I'm supposed to go slash my jobs. Let's see if this worked. Yep, you can see we have this option here. Let's just add one more option. This will be for saved jobs. This will have the icon of heart for saved jobs, and this will take us to saved jobs. Let's refresh our page again and see. There we go. If I click on it, we've been taken to saved jobs. And I think I made a mistake inside of app.jsx. Yeah, it should be saved jobs. Now it should work. If I click here and click on save jobs, great. All right then, we have successfully implemented our user authentication inside of our app. Amazing. So now what I want to do, let's say if I click on this find jobs or post a job, let's say if I click on this find job, you can see we are over here in slash jobs. But what if we are not logged in currently? Now click on find jobs. It still takes us to slash jobs, right? This is not what we want. We want if the user is not logged in, they should be prompted with that modal right here, right? So how do we implement that? So we will create our protected route. So inside the components, I'll create protected route dot JSX. Oops, it should be ROUTE. Okay, RAFCE, protected route. All right. So now, how do we check if a user is logged in or not? So we get a bunch of different hooks from Clerk. One of them is use user, and trust me, it makes our job super easy. So this is like a global context of user authentication, and this provides us a lot of things like is signed in, is the user signed in, all the details of the user, and is the user details, have the user details loaded or not, right? We would also need use location to check where are we currently. So const path name, so path name, and this protected route will take children, it will take something, and it will return those children right over here, and this children will be a protected route. So simply over here, what we will do, I'll say if user is loaded and is not signed in. So is signed in, if the user is not signed in and is signed in is not equals to undefined. That is, it should be false, right? It should not be undefined. That means the query has not been completed yet. So now, then we will say return. We will navigate the user, so navigate, which will be imported from React Router DOM. We will navigate the user to slash, and we created that sign in route, right? So to slash question mark sign dash in to be true. This should do it. Let's take this and go to app.jsx and wrap all of our components with it. So apart from landing page, I'll wrap it around all of these components. So protected route. So let me just do that real quick now. So yep, just like this, you can see I've added it around all of my routes, and now all of my routes are safe. So now if I try to click on find jobs, you can see this will show us this modal. Post a job, again this modal right here. If we try to go to slash onboarding, again will be routed right here. Great. So nice, our protected route is working successfully. Now we haven't used both of these over here because we're going to be using them later on when we will be adding one more condition over here where we will be checking the onboarding status. That is the user a candidate or a recruiter, where are they supposed to go inside of our application, right? So let's just add this over here, and first implement our onboarding process. So I'll go to this page called onboarding.jsx. So right here, I'll take that use user hook again, and let me show you something. Cons user, and if I just go on and console log this user right here, let's go on and log in with the ID that I created, piyush@example.com, and let's add the password. Okay, we are logged in, and you can see it has routed us to /onboarding. Now if I go to inspect inside of the console, you can see with this is the user object that we get. So this has first name, full name, last name, bunch of different things over here, right? But you can see we have something called as unsafe metadata, and this is the place where you can store something which is not very critical to the app, right? I mean, the information of a role, that is if someone is candidate or someone is a recruiter, doesn't really propose as a security threat for the platform, right? So we can store it right over here in the unsafe metadata object. But if we want to store something more secure, then you can store it either in private metadata or public metadata. I mean, not private metadata. Public metadata can be changed by using backend. And if you're using something like Next.js, then we can manipulate this public metadata, but we don't need to worry about all of that right now. We are going to be storing the user's role inside this unsafe metadata object, right? Okay. So first of all, I'll have is loaded over here as well. And meanwhile, this is not loaded, I'm going to show a spinner over here, or a loading, right? So right here, I'll just install a library called npm install react spinners. And I'm going to be using a bar loader loading indicator, right? So I'll say if not is loaded, then I'll have I'll return a bar loader and import from react spinners. So yep, this bar loader. Let's just give this some styles. I'll say class name to be margin bottom of 4, width of 100%, and it will have some color. You can give a color according to your choice. I'm giving it this bluish color over here. So let's see. If I refresh this, you're going to see we have this loading indicator for a brief amount of time, right? Now let's go on and build this UI for the onboarding screen. So inside the div, I'll have a h2 tag, which will say I am a ... and this will have class name of gradient title that we created earlier, if you remember. Font extra bold, text to be 7XL in smaller screen and 8XL on bigger screen, and tracking tighter. Let's see. Yep, just like that. In the parent tag, I'll give a class name of flex column, items to be center and justified to be center, so it appears at the very middle, and margin top will be 40, just like this. And now I'm gonna add 2 buttons over here, that I am a candidate or I am a recruiter. So I'll have a div over here. This div will have class name of margin top to be 16. We'll have grid layout over here, and grid columns will be 2, since we'll be having 2 items over here, right? Gap to be 4 between them, width to be full, and screen size more than medium are gonna have some horizontal padding over here. Okay, let's add a button. First one will say candidate, and let's just import it from components. This will have variant of blue that we created earlier, right? We have added this earlier. Class name is going to be height to be 36. We want these to be bigger buttons, right? So text to XL, just like that. If I see, yep, just like that. Let's duplicate it, and this one will be variant destructive, and same class name for this one. And on click, what we want, let's say recruiter, yep, just like that. And on click, we want to update user's role in that unsafe metadata, right? And actually, let's say instead of margin top 40, I'll say margin top, or probably 32. Yep, that's more like it. So I'll say on click, and inside this on click, I'll be calling a function called handle role selection, and this will take a role as an input. So say candidate, and same for our recruiter button over here as well. This will just say recruiter. Okay, obviously this function doesn't exist yet, so let's just create this function right here. So const handle role selection, and this will be an asynchronous function, because now we're going to be making a asynchronous call to clerk to update this unsaved metadata. Now, there was another option that we could have stored this inside of Supabase in a separate user table, but that will be, repeating ourselves. We'll be creating two user table, right? One in clerk, one in Supabase. So that doesn't really make any sense. So that's why I've decided to store this role inside of clerk itself. And this is actually not something that is very critical to our security as well, right? So over here, I'll say await user. I'll be using this user that we've got, and I'll say dot update. And inside of this, if I open curly braces, you can see all the things that you can update: first name, last name, primary email address, etc. Right? I'll choose unsafe metadata and I'll choose the role, and this role will come from right over here. After this is updated, I'll say dot, then I'll say navigate user to, I'll call a function over here dot then, and I'll navigate the user based on their role, right? So I'll say const navigate, and I'll take this from use navigate, which will come from React Router DOM, and I'll use this navigate over here, and I'll simply say if the role equals to recruiter, then I'm gonna send it to /post-job, else /jobs. Save this, and if there's any error, so dot catch, I'll console log the error over here. Okay, so let's see if this is working. I'll refresh this. Let's select candidate, and we route it to /jobs. And let's open our dashboard, our clerk dashboard, and this is our user right here. You can see the role candidate has been added to this user. And now if I try to go back, this shouldn't take us back to onboarding screen. Now we should not be able to access the onboarding screen once we are onboarded successfully, right? So what I'll do, I'll have a use effect over here, which will only run if user changes, right? So I'll say if user dot unsafe metadata dot role, if it has some value, then I'll check what the value is over here. So I'll just copy it over here, and I'll use this. Let's just add optional chaining, and we will check. If it's recruiter, then route it to this page, else this page. So yeah, now you can see, now we cannot go back to onboarding screen. Awesome. But what if user has not done onboarding successfully? So if I just go on over here and just remove this role for now, save this. So let's suppose if user is not onboarded yet. So if I go back to onboarding screen, now we can access because we have removed the role. So now if I try to go to jobs page, it should not allow me to come to this jobs page or whatever feature of this app, right? It should say that go and first onboard yourself first, and then you can, continue with this app. That is, it should route me to this page again. So what I can do, I can go back to my protected route over here. And now over here, we needed to add this onboarding status, right? We need to check this status. So I'll say if user is not equals to undefined, and if user dot unsafe metadata dot role is not present, you can see we have added not over here, and the optional chaining as well, and the path name is not equals to onboarding, then we can say return navigate. We're gonna navigate them back to onboarding. So to /onboarding. Oops, onboarding. Yep. Now let's see. Onboarding. Yeah, this is correct. If I try to access jobs, it will wait. What's wrong over here? Onboarding. I think. Oh, we need to add / over here. Okay, now it should work. Yep. If you try to access jobs, it's gonna route us back to the onboarding page. Amazing. One more thing that we have to do is we have to show this button only to a recruiter, right? So if we are candidate, we should not see this button right here. So if I go to header.jsx, we have this button right here, and we have to add the condition here, just like we've added the comment. So, oh, sorry, I have not added this inside the link. My bad. So yeah, now over here, I'll add a condition. First, I'll take the user object. So the user object from the use user hook, and take this, and I'll add the condition here. If the user.unsavemetadata.role is equals to recruiter, only then we're supposed to show this button here. Let's see. Yep, that button is no longer visible because we are currently candidate. Great. Now finally, it's time to build our job listing page. But before that, we need to go on and create tables inside of our Supabase and configure our database to store the jobs, companies, the applications, etc. Alright, then let's create the tables for our database. If you come down over here at tables editor, you're gonna land on this page and click on create new table. Now first of all, let's discuss what are all the types of table that we need. We're gonna need a table for storing our jobs. Inside of the jobs, we will have a bunch of different things like the ID of the recruiter, title, company ID, description, location, requirements, is that job post open or not, right? What I was thinking inside of this, if a recruiter has already added a job, there should be a company inside the list of those companies, right? So that they don't have to add the company again and again. So what we can do, we can have a separate table for companies as well. So let's create a companies table first, right? And make sure you enable row level security, because this will allow you to add the security so that no one can, access your table without your permission. Okay, so this will have an ID created at, that's fine. I'm gonna add a new column for name. So name of the company, it's gonna be text. Add a column is going to be logo underscore URL. We're gonna add a logo for the company as well, right? And this is also going to be a text. And click on save. So it's creating a new table called companies. There we go. We have successfully created this table. Now let's add another table. Click on new table. And this one will be for storing our jobs. So what are all the things that we're gonna store inside of it? Number one, the recruiter who have posted this job, right? So recruiter underscore ID. And if you have not provided the recruiter ID, I'm going to give this some default value as well. But first, let's select the text. It's going to be of type text. And the default value will be the function that we created earlier, if you remember. So let me show you. If I just open Supabase again, let's go to the dashboard. And here inside of the SQL editor, you may remember we created this function right here, right? So let's just copy it up. This is optional, but you can, let's just keep it over here. If the user is not providing recruiter ID, we will send the recruiter ID nonetheless. Apart from that, I'm going to have a title field, which is going to be of type text. We're going to have the company's detail over here. So basically, we're not just storing company name over here. We're going to be storing the reference to this company table that we created. So this will be called company underscore ID. And this is going to be a foreign key. If you have worked on SQL before, you may know that foreign key is a key that is in relation with some other table. So click on over here and click on select a table. So I'll select companies, and company ID is related to the ID of that table. So let's say if a company called Google exists in that table, this ID over here will be the ID of that particular column. Yeah, and click on save. Let's add another column for description of that job. This is also going to be of type text. Location will also be text. We will have requirements. If you remember, I showed you we're going to be storing the markdown inside of it. So requirements. So we're going to be storing markdown syntax inside of it. Again, text. And in the end, we're going to have a is open field, which means if the job post is currently hiring or not. And this will be of type Boolean. By default, it's going to be true that it's hiring. Right, and yeah, that's pretty much it. And you can see we have the detail of the foreign key as well that we just added. Let's click on save. All right, jobs table is created. Now next, we're going to be creating a table for storing all of our applications. So a candidate will be applying to a job, right? So that data is going to be stored in the applications table. So applications, enable row level security. Okay. So what are the things that we're going to be adding inside of it? There's going to be a job ID, obviously, that this application relates to. There's going to be a candidate ID who has applied for this job, right? So let's just, let me just add a bunch of different columns over here so that we can add one by one. So job underscore ID, right? And as you may have guessed it, this is going to be a foreign key, relates to a column inside of job table, right? So click on over here, select jobs table and select the ID. And click on save. Now there's one option that I forgot to show you. If you click on this again, there's option for cascading as well. That is, if that particular job is removed, we want to remove all of the applications related to this, right? So you can see action. If the reference row is removed, you can select cascade over here, and then all of the jobs related to that particular, all of the applications related to that particular job will be automatically deleted. So you can, apply it if you want. Let's just apply this over here. Now next, candidate ID. So candidate ID again is going to be text, and we can keep it default as that requesting user ID function over here, so that it can fetch the upcoming token, like incoming token. I'll have status, that is like if the candidate just applied or interviewing, hired or rejected, right? All these 4 status. So this is, we won't allow user to add any value inside of it, right? So we will keep the type of this as enum, and enum basically restricts us to some certain values. So let me show you how can we create an enum. Just go to a new tab and click on database. Here we have enumerated types. Click on create type, and name I'll keep as status. Description you can skip it, and let's add the value. So first one is going to be applied, interviewing, hired or rejected. Create type. Great, this enum has been added. Let's go back and check now. You can see we have this status type now. Just select it. Then we will have a column for resume. We will upload our resume, right? So this will contain the link to our resume. So let's add the text over here. And also this URL will be generated when we will be storing our resume inside of the storage buckets inside of Supabase, right? Then we have skills, again text. Then we would have experience, how much experience the candidate has. This is going to be the number of years, right? So you can either keep it as numeric or you can keep it as text as well. I'll just keep it as text. Then we have education of the candidate, again text. Then we have the name of candidate, probably the most important thing. All right, and yeah, I think that should do it. Let's click on save. All right, now for the last table, I'm going to be creating a new table for our saved jobs, right? So saved jobs, enable row level security. This will have ID created at, and this will have just 2 more things. The user underscore ID for which that, saved job belongs, going to be text. And let's keep that default value over here as well, requesting user ID. And one more thing is the job underscore ID, the particular job that it belongs to. Let's keep it as a foreign key, and I'll select the ID over here, save. And yeah, save it. You can also add the cascading to this one as well, because if the job is deleted, then there is no point of adding a saved job, right? So let's just edit this table, and I'll click, and let's add the cascade over here, save. All right, this is updating the table saved jobs. All right, so we have added all of these tables over here. Now you may remember I showed you that we need to enable row level security, right? Let's see what that's all about. So if you go over here in the authentication, in the policies here, you will see the options for adding the policies or row level security. So first of all, we're going to be creating our job listing page, right? So for this, let's create some rules for our job table. So click on this create policy over here. And we're going to be selecting how the user will read the data. So click on this select, or you can just click on over here, enable read access for all users, but we're not going to allow all users. So for auth user, like authenticated users, right? So click on this target roles and select authenticated. That means only the users who are logged in can see the job posts, and click on save policy. Same for companies table as well, create policy. Click on this. Let's name this for auth users or authenticated users. I'll select authenticated from over here and save policy. Okay, and in our listing page, if you remember, we had an option for wish listing the jobs, right, or saving the jobs. So let's come over here in the save jobs, click on create policy, and here this will not be as simple as this. We only want to show the jobs that are wishlisted by the current user, right? So I'll say enable read access for current user. And this will be select, this will be authenticated, but here this will not be true. We will be adding a rule over here. So we're going to be using this requested user ID. This will help us to fetch the user ID from clerk, like whatever the token that's coming from clerk. If this is equals to user underscore ID. If you remember, we have added the user ID column in the table for save jobs, right? So if this is the case, only then we are going to send, like whatever the data that belongs to user ID in that particular table, we're only going to send it to that user. Click on save policy. Great. So we've added initial 3 policy. We're going to be adding more policies as we go forward in this video, like for posting a job or, updating some things, etc. All right, great. So now, as I mentioned, for the companies, we're going to be uploading the logo as well, right? Logo URL. So we're going to be making that work by using this storage. So these storage buckets are going to have two buckets, right? First for the logos of the companies, and second for the resume of the candidate. So let's click on new bucket and select and add company dash logo. We're gonna make it a public bucket. Click on save over here. Click on new bucket again, and let's add a bucket. Let's say resumes for a resume. Click on public bucket and click on save. There we go. We have added both of these company and resume right here. Now what I want to do, I want to add some dummy data inside of this table. So just so that we can, test it out while we are rendering it over here. Since we don't have any logic for posting the job currently, so let's just start with adding some dummy data. So if you click on insert over here, it's gonna ask us the name and the logo URL. So let's just, to get this logo URL, let's just import some logos inside of our storage, and I'll do that because we have over here some logos inside of the company, right? So let me just reveal in File Explorer, and let's have all of these logos, and I'll just select this company logo and I'll paste it right here. So it's uploading these 8 files, and yeah, again, as I mentioned, we're gonna be doing this through our UI inside of our app. But to get started, let's just add some example over here. And right here, let's go to our table and create some companies. Click on insert row. I'll name it Google. For the logo URL, let's just get this logo URL for Google and paste it over here. Save. There we go. It has been added right here. Let me just do this real quick for all of these companies and I'll be back. Okay, so to get started, I've added 5 companies over here. Let's just add some dummy job data as well. So if you click on jobs, click on insert row. Recruiter ID, I'll just take the current logged in user, and actually this is the candidate. So let's just create a new profile for our recruiter. So I'll open the incognito. I'll click on post a job and let's create a new user. There we go. I've created a new user. Let's just get the ID of this user from network tab. Let's click on over here in the clerk response, and we would get in the sessions, we have this user object over here. Let's just take this user ID and we will create all of these job posts by using this ID itself. So let's paste it over here. Recruiter ID, title of the job, front end developer, company ID, select a record. Let's select Google. Description, you can add any description or requirements, doesn't really matter. Location, let's just say Delhi. For description and requirement, let me just open ChatGPT and generate some descriptions from there. I'll say generate 5 descriptions and requirements for following job. I'll say front end developer, back end developer, data scientist, product manager, and digital marketing. And let's say for following companies: Google, Microsoft, IBM. What else? What else did we have? Amazon and Atlassian. Let's see. Okay, there we go. Let's just take them one by one. I'll take the description. I'll add the description over here. Let's take the requirements and I'll add it right here. Make sure you add these dash at the beginning for all the points so that we can properly format it using our markdown, and click on save. Let me just quickly go on and add 2 more job posts. So insert row, recruiter ID. Okay, so I've added 3 jobs for now, and again, these are just for our testing purposes. Great. So this provides us a good amount of data to get started. So now let's start building this job listing page. So I'll go back to my code and let's close this header, save jobs, app layout, everything. And we will go to this page, joblisting.jsx. Now, obviously, in this page, first of all, you would need to fetch all of the jobs, right? So let's create a new folder called API inside of the SRC. And here we will have a new file called API jobs.js. We will keep all of the APIs related to the jobs right here in this folder. So let's get a new function, export async function. Let's call it get jobs, and this will take the token. So if you remember, we've created this Supabase file over here, not here, right here. This is going to be taking a Supabase access token, right? And this is the exact token. And this token is going to be coming from clerk token. And apart from that, we will have location for the job as a filter. We will have company underscore ID if there's a specific company that we're looking for through filters, and search query. And inside of this, I'm going to say const Supabase equals await Supabase client, and this will be imported from that Supabase file that I just showed you. It will be taking this token right here, and now we're gonna write our query. So let query equals to Supabase dot from. Now from which table are we supposed to take the data? It's jobs, right? So from jobs dot select. What are all the things that we are going to be needing? Let's just take everything. So I'll say star, right? So we're going to take everything inside of the jobs table, and let me just show you how this works first. So just take this query and call it so await query data, and this will give us data and error, and we will say if there's any error, then just throw an error fetching jobs and return null, else we will just return the data. Cool. Let me show you how we will be making the use of it. So let's go back to my page right here in the job listing.jsx, and here inside of a use effect, I'll call this function right here, get jobs. So let's import it, and now we're supposed to send it a token, right? This token right here. So where will this token be coming from? I'll use session from clerk. So you can see clerk/clerk react, we have imported it from here, and this will give us a variable called session. We're going to take this session, and right here I'm going to say, let's just create a separate function for this. Const fetch jobs. Here I'll say const Supabase access token equals await session dot get token. We will get the token from clerk and provide it to Supabase. So this will be an asynchronous function since we're using await over here. So get the token, and you may remember we use the template of Supabase, right? So I'll say template Supabase. Let's just move this function right here, and I'll provide it with this Supabase access token. We will provide this more things as well, obviously, but for now let's just use this and try to get our data. So await const data. Let's just console log this data and see what do we get when we call this fetch jobs. I'll call this fetch jobs inside of use effect right here. Let's go back to our app and inspect console. Okay, destructure parameter is undefined. Okay, so this right here is undefined, all of these, but we don't need them right now. So okay, let's just remove them nonetheless. Now let's see. Yep, we get all of these 3 jobs right here that we added inside of our database. Amazing. Now you might be thinking, we're not gonna be doing this again and again, right? Taking out this token from this session and just sending it again and again, right? So let's just create a wrapper that we will be using, or more specifically a hook that we will be using for fetching our data. So I'll create a new folder inside the SRC called hooks, and inside this hooks I'll create a new file called usefetch.jsx, and this will be a custom hook that we will be building for fetching our data. And this is honestly very easy. So I'll say const usefetch, and this usefetch will take a few things. First, a callback function which we will call and fetch the API, and the options that are supposed to go along with that request, and this is going to be an empty object. This will be an arrow function. Oops, like that. Now let's take this session that we created over here, let's move it right here. Apart from that, we're gonna have a few more states here as well, like for our data, our loading, our error, right? These 3 states. So let's import use session, and below this I'll write a logic for fetching our data. So const function equals async. I'll take any extra arguments that will be coming from the user, and I'll show you in just a moment if you don't understand it right now. Don't worry. Now when we will start to fetch our data, we will set the loading and the error. So loading to be true and error to be null, right? And here I'll have a try catch block. First of all, in the try block, I'll take this token, right? So I'll take this token over here, take this token from this clerk, and then we have this callback coming from our params, right? We're gonna be using this callback. This callback can be this fetch jobs or whatever. So I'll say callback, and I'll provide it with this Supabase access token, comma, options, whatever the options that we're receiving from here. Or if there's any additional arguments, I'll take this args over here as well. And let's just say await const response. And yeah, that's all. This will help us to fetch our data from the API. And after this, simply I'll say set data to response and set error to null. Inside of the catch block, I'll say set error to error, and we will have a finally block over here as well, which will simply say set loading to be false. All right. And all we need to do, we're going to take this function, and in the end, we're going to return this to the user so that user can make use of this custom hook. So return function data loading and the error states, all of these states, right? And let's export this use fetch over here as well. So export default use fetch. And now notice how easy this will make our job. So over here, we don't need to do all of these things anymore. None of these things. All we have to do now, use fetch. We have to take that hook and we have to provide it the function. So this get jobs function, let's just get rid of both of these. So get jobs function that we're supposed to fetch. And if there's any additional options, we can fetch, like send it over here as well. Now this will return us a few things. As you may remember, this will return us function. So let's just rename it as fn jobs. This will give us data, rename it data jobs. And this will also give us loading. So let's just rename this to loading jobs, right? Simple enough. And now you'll see when I go on and call this fn jobs. So let's just call it in use effect itself, and jobs. Then we will get the data inside of this data jobs. So data jobs. Now let's go back, refresh the page. Okay, we get undefined. There must be something wrong over here. I think this must have not gotten loaded up until this point. Let's go back. Yeah, you can see we have this data right now. Amazing. This works flawlessly. And also creating custom hooks is very important, especially in our front-end interviews. I've seen a lot of front-end interviews where candidate just gets rejected because they don't know how to build custom hooks, right? So I've discussed this and many such custom hooks in my front-end interview preparation course. This is the only thing that you will ever need to prepare for your front-end interviews. And not only this, I've covered every single topic of React.js, like React Router DOM, Redux, all of the hooks, class-based component, function-based component React, even the performance optimization, which is asked from senior developers a lot, tons of machine coding questions as well, and obviously in-depth interview preparation course on JavaScript as well. So all of this you get in one single course. So click the link in the description down below, because right now we're having the biggest sale of the year for a very limited time. So don't forget to check it out. Or you can also scan this QR code on your screen to go directly to the course page. Let's get rid of this console log and let's continue writing the logic for get jobs. So we had these three filters over here as well, right? And after our query, I'm going to say if the user has provided a location filter, then I'll say query equals to query.eq. So basically eq is to compare a value inside of a table. So if any column inside of a table with location key, if it's equal to the location that I'm sending, so this location right here, so I'll say location, comma, location. If that's the case, then it's going to return only those particular columns. And same for company ID and search query over here as well. So I'll just write them quickly. If it's equals to that, then send it only that. And with regards to query, I'll use query.iLag. That means if the title of a job contains this particular search query, make sure you add these mod symbols. If this particular search query is contained in the title, only those fields will be returned to us, right? And yeah, that's all. That's all for this get jobs function. Let's go on and write the logic for this inside of, let's create the UI for this inside of over here job listing. Now, the reason why the request was being delayed is because the data was not loaded at that point, right? So I'll use the use user hook, which comes from clerk, as I've already showed you. This gives us a bunch of things, right? Like is loaded, and this is loaded is what will enable us to fetch our data, right? So basically, if you go inside of use fetch hook, we're using this session, right? And this session will only be available if the data is loaded. So I'll take this is loaded and put it right here. And I'll say only if the loading is done, then fetch the jobs, right? And also for our filters, if you remember these filters, we will have separate states. So I'll create 3 states, one for search query, location, and company ID. All of them will be empty by default. And we will be providing them all these 3 right over here in the options: location, company ID, and search query. Okay, cool. And actually, if any of these 3 changes, we're gonna also be recalling this fn jobs, right? So let's just provide them here as well. Import use state right here. Okay, this looks good. Everything is set up. If you remember in the onboarding screen, while this was being loaded, we added this is loaded, like we added a loading bar, right? So let's just copy it and we will show this loading bar over here as well. Let's import bar loader, and now you're gonna see that if we refresh this, see there's a loading indicator right here. Amazing. So first of all, inside this div, I'll have a title. So h1 tag, and I'll say latest jobs, and let's just give this a class name of gradient dash title that we gave earlier. Font to be extra bold, text 6XL, and in the bigger screen, text to be 7XL. Text is going to be at the center, and padding bottom is going to be 8. Let's see how this looks. Okay, pretty good. Now after this, we're obviously going to be adding our filters. So add filters here. I'll just add the comment and we'll come back to this later on. And below the filters, if the job is currently being loaded, so loading jobs, so I'll say loading jobs is true, then we will add a bar loader over here as well. So bar loader, this will say margin top of 4, width to be 100%, and same color. Let's see. Yep, when the jobs are loading, so that earlier bar loader was for the user loading, and this one is for the jobs loading. Okay, now I'll say if loading jobs is equals to false, and the reason that I'm writing over here is this, because loading jobs can be undefined as well, right? So it can mistake this to be that loaded jobs, like jobs have been loaded, right? So I only want this to run, like to only show if the loading jobs is false. Only then we will show all of our jobs. I'll have a div over here. Inside this, we will render all of our jobs. So jobs dot length. So first of all, we will check if these jobs have anything inside of it, right? Let's just rename this data jobs to just jobs over here, and I'll say jobs dot length. If this is present question mark, then we will render all like the job inside of it. Else we will simply say no jobs found. Right now inside this, I'll say jobs dot map. I will map through all of the jobs over here, return, and for now let's just take a job and render its title. So inside of a span tag, I'll say job dot title, and let's see, do we have something here? We have front-end developer, back-end developer, and data scientist, all of 3 jobs that we rendered. But we're obviously not going to be rendering them just over here, right? I'm going to be creating a separate component called job card, which will render each and every job for us. Let's just give it a key of job.id, and we're going to send the actual job to it. Okay, this obviously doesn't exist yet, so let's just create it inside of our components. I'll create a new file called job-card.jsx, RAFCE, job card. All right, let's import it over here. Oh, and by the way, one more thing that I forgot to do. So if you inspect and go to network, let's just refresh our page. We have this for, where's the jobs? Yeah, this one for the jobs network request. Inside the response, we have all of this data, and for the company, we are just getting the ID, right? That's not gonna help us to render the details of the companies. So we want more company details. So what I will do, I'll go to my API jobs, and right here, along with the job details, we want some things from the company as well, right? So company, inside of the company field, I want to take out from companies table, and I want to take out the name and logo underscore URL. Now it will look for foreign key relation between both of these tables, and with respect to that, it will fetch only that company that belongs inside the company ID, right? So let me show you. Now we will have a company field with the name Google and logo URL. Also, if you remember, we have all of the cards, job cards with the wish list option as well, right? To save the jobs. So that is also important over here. I would need to add a saved option over here. So comma saved, and this will fetch all the saved jobs with that particular ID. So now over here you can see we have saved as empty array. Okay, cool. All right, going back to our job listing page and actually our job card page, job card component. This component right here will take few things. First of all, the actual job data and a few more things. So thing is, this job card is going to be used in multiple places, right? Like for example, in saved jobs page, right? Which will only show the jobs that are saved by the current user, or this will be used inside of my jobs page of a recruiter, where it will only show the jobs created by that particular recruiter. So I'll have a key over here is my job, and this will be false by default. And let's say if this is true, then obviously we would need to show something like a trash icon on which a recruiter can click and delete a job, right? So this is going to be useful in those cases. Apart from that, I'll have is saved, or let's say saved initial value. Initially it's going to be false. If then this job is saved or not, we're going to be providing this detail from outside. And we can also save our job, right? So on job saved, what action are we going to be performing when a job is saved, right? Knowing all of these things is very important while building an app. These are some things that are asked in our interviews as well very often, right? So keep that in mind. We are also going to be needing use user over here later on. So const user details, I'll just keep them handy over here. All right, so instead of this job card, now what I'll say, I'll use a card component over here. So card. So if you remember, I've used the card component earlier in this video as well. Inside this, we're gonna have a card header, and this is pretty simple. You can just go to Shadcn UI and you can know more about this. Card title. This card title is going to be job.title. Let's see if this is being rendered. Yes, this is being rendered. Below this, if this is my job, I'm gonna render a trash icon, right? So is my job and trash to icon. Let's keep the fill to be red, size to be 18, and class name is going to be text red 300 and cursor pointer. So let's just invert the value for now. And let's see, yep, we can see this icon, but we don't need this icon just yet. This card title will have, okay, sorry, it was supposed to go inside the card title. Yep, just like that. This card title will have this class name of flex, justify between, and font bold, so that they are on far opposite to each other. So let me just invert it again, and yeah, just like this. Let's bring it back. Below this card header, I'll have card content. This will have a div which will contain the further details about our job, right? So first of all is going to be about the company. So I'll say if job.company exist, job.company exist inside of this object, then I'll simply render the company's logo. So image src job.company.logo URL, and class name will have some height of 6, right? So let's see. Yep, we can see the company logo. Below this, I'll render the location of the job. So I'll have another div with map, pen, icon, and all of these will be coming from Lucid React, right? All these icons. Size is going to be 15, and we will render the job.location over here. Let's see. Yep, we can see that. Below this div, I'll have a line which will separate it, and I'll have job description. So job.description. Let's see. But this is too long, right? We only want the description to be as big as first full stop. So I'll just render it till here, right? So I'll just say dot substring, start from 0 and go to job.description.index of. So this index of finds the first index of whatever, right? So this, in this case, it's dot. So now see, now it's gotten much more smaller. Great. So let's just give some class name to this card content, which will be display flex duration to be column, gap to be 4, and flex to be 1. And for this div as well, I'm going to give display flex so that they come in one single line, right? So let's see. Yep, that looks much better now. So this icon as well over here, I'll just give class name of flex and gap to be 2, and items are going to be center so that they're vertically aligned in the center. Yep, just like that. Let's give the footer to this as well so that we can see more details about a job. So below card content, I'll have card footer. This will have class name of flex and gap to be 2. Now inside of the footer, I'm gonna have a link which will take us to the job page of that particular job, right? So inside this link, I'm gonna have a simple button just like we did up until this point with a variant secondary, and class will be width full. And this link will take us to /jobs, or actually /job / the ID of that particular job. So job.id, and I'll just give this class name of flex1 so that it takes all of the space over here. Let's see. Okay, good. we need a heart icon over here as well, just to show if this has been already saved or not. So I'll say heart icon, and I'll say size is equals to 20, and stroke is going to be red. So let's see. Okay, this looks good. Let's fill it as well. Fill equals red. Okay, nice. So now let's let's just go on and create the logic for this first, saving and unsaving job. But let's just display these jobs in a grid format. So I'll go to this job listing, and right here on this div, I'll give a class name of margin top of 8. Display is going to be grid. In the screens more than medium screens, it's going to be grid calls 2, that is 2 columns. In the larger screens, I'm gonna say 3. So we're gonna show 3 columns, and gap is going to be 4 between them. So let me show you. If I make this smaller, you're gonna see 2 and then 1 in the smaller screens. Amazing. So we have a really good responsive UI over here. Let's go on and add the logic for save unsaved jobs. So first of all, just like usual, we're gonna go on and create a policy for this. So inside the authentication and policy for save jobs, I've already created a policy for reading it, for fetching the jobs. And you know what, let's while we are at it, let's try to see if we are getting this inside of with our jobs or not. So inside of save jobs, let's take the current user's ID first of all from our network tab. I'll just refresh this, and here in the response, we're gonna get the user ID. So sessions object and the user, user ID. This is what we're gonna store. So let's insert row. In the user ID, I'll insert this, and job ID, let's select any job over here. Let's select this first one and save it. All right, now if I go back and see our list of jobs, if I refresh this, and inside of our jobs, let's see, for the first one, it should be sending us an array of saved. Yep, you can see this has the ID. That means this is a job that is saved for this user. All right, great. So let's add the policy for inserting and deleting the saved jobs. So inside the authentication policies for saved jobs, I'll click on create policy and click on this insert for authenticated users only. Click on over here, and it should show up as authenticated in the roles automatically, and just click on save policy. So anyone can insert for their own user ID, like inside of the saved jobs. But if you want to delete it, it should be the signed in user, right, who's deleting their own saved job. So I'll click on over here, enable delete based on user ID, and this is not we're gonna write over here. We're gonna compare it with user ID, but instead of this function, we use that request user ID function, right? Requesting user ID. So requesting user ID, and save it. And user will only be able to delete if the user ID matches with the current user who is logged in. All right, now let's go on and write the API for this. So for the save jobs, let's just write the logic in this itself. Let's just duplicate this function, and I'll keep the things that we need inside of it. Let's just remove all of these if statements. And now I'll just write this query directly instead of writing it over here separately. And instead of get jobs, I'll say save job. Not gonna need all of these. And actually, I will need one variable that is already saved. I need to know if this job is already saved or not. And the save job data, that is save data that we're supposed to save inside of our database, right? The job that we're supposed to save. So again, we have created the Supabase client, and inside of this, let's just write some conditions. So if it's already saved, so if already saved, then we're gonna delete it from our database, right? So let's just copy this query over here, and I'll say await Supabase from, and I'll say saved underscore jobs, right? And after that, I'll say dot delete it. But how are we going to compare it? We're going to compare it with respect to the job ID. So dot eq job underscore ID if the job ID is equals to save data dot job underscore ID, just like that. If that's the case, then we're going to delete it. And let's add the error check over here. So right after this, I'll say, instead of error, I'll say delete error. I'll say if delete error is true, so error deleting saved job, and then we're gonna return the data. Else, if that is not the case, then we're gonna save the data, right? I mean, save the job. So let's just get rid of this, and I'll copy this right here. I'll paste it over here. Instead of delete error, I'll say insert error, await from saved jobs, I need to insert instead of delete, insert, and I'll insert the save data. I'll show you what we have inside of the save data very soon. We will have the user ID and the job ID, right? Those are the things that we will need to save a job, right? And then in the end, I'm just gonna say dot select. Just return whatever you have saved in there. And I'll just copy it up and paste it over here and use the insert error right here. Over here as well, insert error, and here it should be delete error. And in the end, I'm gonna return the data. And this should be good enough. Let's go on and write the logic and build the UI for this. So back inside the job card, I'm gonna be using our useFetch function again. So let's just copy the useFetch function, else I'll have to write it all over again. So let's copy this and paste it over here. Not gonna be needing this. I'll say save job function over here. Let's import the useFetch. Instead of these jobs, let's select all of these. I'll say saved job, and let's make this as smaller. Yeah, now this is where this user ID will be helpful. Let me show you. So I'll create a function called handle save job. This will be an asynchronous function. Await fn saved job, and we're gonna send it two things: the user underscore ID, which is going to be user.id, and the job underscore ID, which is going to be job.id. Let's just add a comma here. Okay. And if you remember, I've plotted this on job saved, right? So whenever user saves a job, if they want to perform any action, they can perform it through this function. We're just gonna add it. Let's see if that comes to our use later on. And it actually will be more useful when we use this job card inside of our saved jobs page, because then after saving it, after saving a job, we will have to refetch all the saved jobs, right? So that case, this will be useful. All right, now simply we can go on over here in the heart icon that we've added. Here we can say, first of all, we need to check. So we have this tag over here, is my job, right? So this tag will be used in the my jobs page if recruiter can, if recruiter can see if this their job or not. So if it's their job, then obviously we don't need to show any heart icon, because then they won't need to wishlist this, right? So if it's not my job, only then show this. So here I'll have a button with variant of outline, class name of width 15. On click, I'll have that handle save job function over here, and it will be disabled when this is loading. So whenever this is being fetched, this will be disabled. So loading save job, if it's true, then we cannot press this button because already user has pressed it, right? Now let's bring in this heart icon inside of it, and now we'll check if this job is already saved. If it's saved, then obviously I'm gonna show the filled heart icon, right? Else I'm gonna show as empty heart icon. But this saved doesn't exist yet, right? So I'll create a separate use state or state for this called saved, and the initial value for this is going to be this saved init. And I'll tell you why I'm putting it over here. It's because when when we press this button, save button, we will have to fetch the whole job listing again to get the status of the saved job, if the saved if the job is saved or not, right? And we don't want to do that, right? That's just too much pressure on our server to fetch it again and again every time someone saves a job. So what we will do, we have made a temporary solution for this. Whenever we click on that heart icon, whenever we'll click on this heart icon right here, it will just temporarily check that, okay, if it was not saved, then now it will be saved, since the data from the backend is sending us the saved job, right? So to achieve that, I'm gonna have a use effect. Inside the use effect, I'll say if saved job, after saving the job, if it's not undefined, that means someone has saved a job, right? So I'll say set saved to be saved job dot length is more than 0, just like that. And this will be running whenever the saved job changes. It can be that it is empty, or it cannot be empty, right? If we're going to delete a job, then obviously this is going to be empty, so the length is going to be 0, and this will become false then. Okay, let's take this saved, and here if it's saved, then we're going to show the full heart icon, or I'm going to show the empty heart icon without any stroke or fill. Let's check it out. If I click on over here, okay, it's disabled, and what's going on in the network tab? We don't get any response yet. Oh, it's maybe because we are not sending it from the job listing page right here, right? So if I go down over here, you can see we're just sending these two things. We need to send that saved init function as well. So all we need to do over here is we need to say job.saved, job.saved.length is more than 0. Let's add the optional chaining over here. If that's the case, then it will show it as saved. Let's see, this first one should be lit. Yep. If I click on it again, it should be deleted from the database, but I think it's two of them. It created a third entry as well. So it, I guess, didn't recognize that it was saved. Let's see that again. So right here, if we click on handle save, then it will run this function and this should work. Let's see inside the save job. Oh, I guess we need to send this already saved, right? So I need to send it from right here, already saved, and it should be this saved comma. Let's see if it works. If I remove this, great, this is removed and we didn't get any response. And let's see in the table, yep, these are removed. If I click on it, now it should just create one entry point for this. I mean, just one entry inside of the database. Yep, just like that. If I click on it again, it should be removed from our database. There we go, it's removed from here as well. Awesome, so that was our save and unsave logic. Now let's go on and work on those filters over here. We're gonna add a search bar, we're gonna add location filter, company filter, etc. So as you remember, we have 3 filters over here. First for the search, second for the location, and third for the companies. So companies filter, I'll fetch all of the companies that are in our system or in our database currently, and I'll render them over here in the select box so that user can select amongst these companies, right? And then we'll have the location drop down as well, for which we will be using a library called country, state, city. So let me show you. If I go to my terminal and open a new terminal over here, npm install country, state, city, and this is super useful for fetching all of the cities or state of any single country, right? So we're gonna filter our job with respect to a particular state. If you want, you can do that for cities as well. The procedure remains the same, but to keep things easy, I've just selected state. Okay. Also, for getting all our companies, I'm assuming I've already added the policy over here. Let's just check in the authentication policies. Yep, I've already added this this policy over here. So let's just create a new file for API companies, and I'll just add all the logic related to companies over here, like fetching the company or adding the company. So export async function, and I'll say get companies, and here I'll just take the token. Okay, now similar to previously, I'll just take this thing, and actually let's just take all of these things and we're going to customize it according to us. We're not going to need this if statement, so I'm going to create a new Supabase client, send it the token, and after that I'll say await Supabase dot from companies, and here select star. That is everything inside of this. Instead of this delete error, I'll just say error now, error, and in the end return the data, and here I'll say error fetching companies. Okay, simple enough. Let's just make use of it inside of our job listing page. So right here, let's just duplicate this, and similar to this, I'm going to be fetching the companies as well. So get companies, not going to need this object now, and I'll say for function companies and data companies, I'll just rename both of these, right? And similar to this, fetch it on use effect, but we are not going to put them over here. If it's loaded, then fn companies. Okay, we're going to use this companies data to add in the select box. All right, let's just close this. Right here, we're going to create our filters. All right, so I'll add a form right here with on submit, and this will call handle submit or handle search actually, because this is going to be for the search filter, right? So let's just create this function for now, handle search, and this will simply contain an input from shared scene UI. So input with the capital I, and let's import it from /component/UI. It will be of type text. Placeholder is going to be search jobs by title, and this field is going to have name of search query and some class name of height full, flex 1, and padding horizontal to be 4, and text is going to be medium. Let's see. Yep, that looks good. Let's add a very simple button over here with our variant blue. So button, I'll import this button right here. Type is going to be submit, class height full, and the Smaller screen size is going to have width of 20. I mean, screens bigger than smaller screen size is going to have width 28 and variant blue. Yeah, let's see. Yep, that looks good. Let's just give some class name to this form. Class name, height to be 14. Display is going to be flex. Oops, flex. Width is going to be full. Let's see. Yep, let's give it some gap. Gap of 2. Items is going to be center and margin bottom to be 3. Much better. Let's add the both of those filter, and you know what, let's first write the logic for this form and then we can work on writing that. So inside of this handle search, let's just first prevent default. So e dot prevent default, and I'll say let form data equals new form data e dot target, and simply over here I'll take out the form data of search query because that is what our input is called, right? And in the end I'll say if the query is present, then set search query to this query. Now you're gonna see if I go back and say front end and search, it's only going to be showing me the jobs for front end, just like that. Great. Let's just remove this. And actually we need a button for clearing our filters as well, so we'll make it in just a moment. Below this form I'll have a div for both of those select boxes, right? So let's see how the select work in ShadCN UI. So ShadCN UI, and in the components let's go to select, and yep, this is what we want. Let's click on the code and let's just take this code right here and we're gonna paste it inside of it. Let's just import from component all of these things one by one. Select item. Yep, let's see inside of our app. It's not showing up over here. I hope it's saved. Let's refresh this. Yep, just like this. Now instead of this, we obviously don't want this. Let's remove all of this. Let's keep one select item for now. And you might remember we have created the states for location and the company ID over here, right? So this location is going to go over here in the value of this select. So value equals location, and on value change we're gonna say value and provide it to set location value, just like this. Let's give a placeholder of filter by location. Let's remove this class name of the width, default width, and inside this select group now finally I'm gonna remove this select label. We're not gonna need that. I'll have states, just state, not states, and import it from country, state, city, right? So let's see. Yeah, this is imported, and we will say dot get states of country. So it will fetch all of the states of a particular country. In this case I'll say India, IN. You can customize it according to, just like I mentioned earlier. And let's map through it. Let's keep select item inside of it, and we will take out just the name from it. Let's take the name and render it right here. And for the location, the value is going to be name, and let's keep the key as well for the name. And let's add return here, and this should be good to go. Let's go and check it out. Okay, yeah, you can see we have all the different location. If I press, let's say, T over here, it goes to T section of this list. Amazing. Let's render all of the companies. So we have already taken all of the companies over here. Here we have inside of this companies. So all we have to do is we have to replicate this select over here. Let's replicate it, and let's choose the different state for the company ID. Value is going to be set company ID, and the value filter by company. And here instead of this I'll put the companies dot map name comma ID, because we get the ID as well, right? And value is going to be ID instead of the name. And I guess this should do it. Let's go on and check it out. If I select a company, select let's say Google over here, it should only show the jobs for Google. Yeah, just like that. Now let's make it a little bit better. But first let's just give a button component over here, which will help us to clear all of our filters. So button clear filters. Variant is going to be destructive. Class name, if it's bigger than smaller screens, then width of 1 by 2, right? It will consume the half of the width. And on click, I'll call a function called clear filters, which obviously doesn't exist yet. So let's just create it over here, const clear filters like that. And simply inside of it, all we will have to do is just set search query company ID and location to empty, right? Let's see. Yep, that's how I want to do it. And let's just wrap this div, provide this div a class name of flex column. In the larger screens, it will be flex row, and smaller screen it will be flex column, and gap will be 2. So let's see, let's make this smaller. Yep, this is exactly what we wanted. Let's check the functionality out. So we have added a Google filter. If I add, let's say Delhi, because there's just the option of Delhi over here. If I click on, let's just wait for it. Let's click on clear filter, and you can see all of the filters have been cleared, and we have all the job posts over here. Now, there's one assignment for you right here. There can be a lot of companies over here, right? Like hundreds of companies, and you cannot just display them all together over here. So Chat-CN UI has a pagination component. What I want you to do, I want you to implement this pagination component over right here. If you don't want to use Chat-CN UI, I have actually a complete video on pagination as well, so you can go and check out that video, but this is an assignment for you. Let me know in the comments down below how you did it. Also, I can see a bug over here. It's moving upwards. So what I'll do, I'll go to the job card component, and I'll just say class name to be flex and flex column. Let's see. Yep. Now all of these have moved at the bottom. All right, now let's work on building the single job page. So if you click on over here, this is job page, right? /job/id. Let's build this page now. We need to add the policy for the applications, because see this in this job page, we're going to render the job, and if a person is recruiter, then they need to see all of the applications rendered below this, right? So let's just add this policy right away. So enable read access for all users and save policy. Good. Now let's go back to our code, and inside the API jobs, I'm going to add another API or another logic for fetching a job, right? So let me just take it from over here, because this is also going to be very simple. So instead of get company, I'll say get single job. It will take a token, and it will take a job underscore ID. Create the Supabase token, and here, so Supabase from, and we're gonna take jobs, and from jobs, I'm gonna select everything, and I'll say if it is equal to job ID. So if the ID is equal to the job ID that we'll be providing through this, right? Now, here, if you remember, inside of this get jobs, we had this company, and we're getting the company logo and name, right? So that's exactly what we're going to do over here as well. I'll take the company, and I'll take the applications. And don't worry, we're only going to show these applications to the recruiter, right? Not everyone can see. So applications and star, just like this. And error fetching company. And we're going to be fetching a single job, right? So in the end, I'll say single, else this will give us response in form of an array. So yeah, that should do it. Let's go to our job page. Inside the pages, the job.jsx file, and right here, few things that are going to remain the same. That first of all, we need to check if the user is loaded or not. So I'll say is loaded from use user. If this is loaded, then we're going to show the bar loader, but also I'm going to check if the current job is loaded or not. So if you see in this page, we have this ID in the param, right? So to get this ID from the param, I'm going to use a hook called use params over here, right? And this will give us this ID. And now we can do use fetch over here, just like we did earlier. So use fetch, let's import this, and this get single job that we just created right here. So it's just nothing else, like it's very simple. And we're going to provide it inside of this object. I'm going to provide job ID as the ID, because that is what we need over here. Okay. And then we'll have this loading job and other stuff. So simply, if this is loaded, just like I showed you earlier, then inside the use effect, I'm gonna say fn job. Nothing new over here. We have done all of these things before. And also, if the current job is loading, or if the user is loading, then I will show our bar loader, just like before, right? Very simple stuff over here. Let's just see. I'll refresh the page. Okay, we can't see anything. Why is that? Refresh again. Let's see the app.jsx. Okay, instead of job page, we have added my jobs over here. So jobs page or job page should be here. So this should be here in the my job. I guess I've added the job page. I've reversed both of them. Okay. Now if I go back and refresh this, yep, we can see the loading. Yep. Cool then. Let's work on UI now. Inside this div, I'll have another div which will first contain our heading of job, right? So this will be job.title. Then after this, we're gonna have the image for that particular company, right? So here I will say job.company.logo URL, and class name is going to be height of 12, and in alt tag we're going to provide job.title. Let's see. Yep, this is what we want. Here we're going to provide all of those styles that we previously provided, like gradient title and all. So gradient title, font extra bold, padding bottom, and text to be 4XL in smaller screen and 6XL in bigger screens. Yep, just like this. Below this div, I'll show the job location and how many applicants have applied for this job and if this job is opened or not. So I'll have another div over here. And actually for this particular div, since we have two things, let's just bring them to one row. So I'll say display flex, flex column reverse. In smaller screens, in the bigger screens, we're just gonna show flex row, and I'll show you what that will do. So gap 6 between them, justify between, and item center. So if I go back and inspect, you're gonna see in smaller screens, this Google will come above this front-end developer, right? That's why flex column reverse. If it was not reversed, then it would have came below it. Also for this parent div, I'll say class name flex column, so that everything appears from top to bottom, gap to be 8 and margin top to be 5. Alright, so for this div, let's just give it class name of flex and justify between, because we want them to be evenly distributed, like on the sides. And here, first of all, we will show the job location, right? So job.location, add some optional chaining, and here I'll have a map pin icon, just like earlier, class name of flex and gap of 2. Let's see. Yep, like that. Similarly, for showing all of the applicants, I'm gonna say div, and this will also be flex and gap of 2, and inside of it I'll have a briefcase icon and say job.applicants.length, and I'll say applicant. So this will tell us how many applicants have applied for this job. Let's see. Oh, sorry, let's just do optional chaining because there are no applicants currently, right? So it will give error. So it should show 0. Why is it not showing? Applications, sorry, applications. Yep, 0 applicants. Great. Again, I'm gonna duplicate this div, and inside of it now, I'll say if this job is opened or not. So simply, I'll check if this job is open, question mark. If it's open, then I'll show a door open icon and say open. Else, let's just copy this, and I'll say closed, and I'll say door closed icon over here. Let's just close this curly brace and let's see. Yep, this job post is open right now. Now right below this div right here, I'm gonna have a select for our hiring status, right? So let's just say hiring status so that we don't forget this, and then below it we're gonna write about the job, right? So let's just have a title called about the job. It will have text 2XL, in bigger screen text 3XL, and font bold. Below this I'm gonna show the job description. Very simple stuff over here, job.description. Let's just duplicate this, and I'll say what we are looking for, and here below this we're gonna be rendering our requirements. So if you remember, in the beginning of this video I showed you that for the requirements we will be using a markdown syntax, right? So for that we have to install a package called MD editor. So let's go to Google and say MD editor npm, React MD editor. So let's just copy it and I'll paste it over here, UIW/React MD editor, and then right below this, meanwhile this is installing, I'll just write MD editor dot markdown. This will be a self-closing tag, and inside of it will take the source. So source will be our job.requirements, right? So let's just say job.requirements. Let's just import MD editor now since it has been installed. Yep, like that. And the class name is going to be background transparent, and in the bigger screen the text will be large, like that. Let's see. If I go back over here, we're gonna see all of our something's wrong over here. We can still see the background. I think we would need to add some global styles for this. So if you just come down over here and select this, you're gonna see we have a class over here, WMDE markdown. right? So we need to alter this class if we want to show those bullet points. So inside the index.css, I'll simply paste this WMDE markdown and change the UL styles to list style type disk, padding left to be 25 pixel and color to be white. So now you can see we have all of these over here. Great. And below this, we're going to be rendering all of the applications, right? So I'll say render applications. Let's just leave it like that for now. All right. So now let's just work on this hiring status, right? So to change this hiring status, that means we have to update our job post. And for updating our job post, we need to add a policy of updation, right? So let's go on over here, create a policy. And here, let's click on update. Okay, we don't need check expression, so make sure to uncheck it instead of this, and enable update for users based on recruiter underscore ID. So here simply we have a recruiter ID inside of the table, right, or inside of every column. So here simply we will check if the current user who is logged in, if it's equal to that particular recruiter, that is recruiter who created this job, right? Only then we can update this job post. So save policy. Oh, also I forgot to do one more thing. Let's click on edit policy again, and here you need to select authenticated. Only then it will take it. Okay, save policy. All right, let's go back to the code inside of API jobs, and I'll replicate it again. And here this API will be for update hiring status. This will take a token. It will take a job ID, and it will take a flag of is open, if it's open or not. So this will send true or false for us. Okay, so now await Supabase from jobs, and here instead of select, let's say dot update. And what are we supposed to update? Is open. So is open colon, and we need to give this some values. So this is the value. Since it's same, we can just avoid writing the value, and this will take it. So is open. After that, it should be equal to that particular job ID and select. Yep. If it doesn't get updated, so error dating job. And I guess I didn't write it over here. Error fetching job. Yep. And yeah, that's all. Let's take this. Let's go back inside job.jsx, and right here I'll have to create another hook for use fetch. So let me just do that real quick. Right here, import update hiring status, and simply just for loading hiring status and function fn hiring status. Simple enough. Right below this, I'll create a function const handle status change, and this will take a value from us and it will update the job status. So value, and I'll check const is open is equals to, so if value is equals to open, so we will have a select box which will have an open and closed value. So if the value is open, then we will say true, else this will be false, right? And simply take this fn hiring status now and provide it with is open right here. And after we've done this, we want to fetch the job again. So I'll say dot then, and right here I'll say fn job, this function that we had earlier, right? Okay, let's just take this and make use of it. So here in the hiring status, so here we'll check if the recruiter who posted the job, if their ID matches the current user's ID or not. See, I know I've already added this check in the backend, but we need to add this check on front end as well to show this select, right? So if job.recruiter ID is equals to the current user who is signed in, I'm taking this user from right here, use user. So if this is equal, then we will show the select box over here. So we have used the select box earlier, right, in job listing. Let's just take this select box over here, it will be easier for us, and I'll paste it right here. And actually it should be and, not question mark. Yeah. So let's import all of these select trigger, select value, select content, and we're not going to be needing select group. So let's just remove this, and let's just remove all of this as well except select item. Okay, so here let's just not give any value. On value change, I'll say that function that we created earlier. So handle status change, this function that we created. Select value, so the initial value over here will be with respect to the hiring status. So I'll say placeholder will be equals to hiring status plus what is the hiring status? Is it open or closed? So if job.is open, then I'll say open, else I'll say closed. And over here in the class name over here as well, I'll show either red or green with respect to that. So I'll first save it to be full, and if it's open, then show green color, else red color. And now inside this select item, we'll have two things. One is going to be open, and not gonna be needing keys since we are not doing map here. Let's import this select item, and one is open and other is closed, and the value is going to be open, and for the second one the value is going to be closed, and this should work just fine. Let's see over here. Let's refresh the page. Let's open our network tab as well just to see. Okay, so this is not the recruiter who created this job, right? That's why we can't see him. So let's create a new window and log in with that recruiter. So I'll click on login, Piyush at roadsitecoder.in, continue. Let's add the password. Okay, we have opened this page, and now let's just open our network tab as well. Let's click on closed, and now you're gonna see the hiring status is now closed. Let's just check our Supabase database. So jobs, and for this one the hiring status is false. Amazing. Let's go back to our candidate's ID, which is here, and here if we refresh this, you're gonna see this job is now closed. Yeah, closed. Also, meanwhile that hiring status is going on, let's just show a loader as well. So right here above this, I'll show a bar loader. Let's just make it not, and see. Yep, this is what we want. Great. And yeah, with this we have successfully made our job page. Now what we have to do, we have to write the logic for applying to a job, right? How do a candidate apply to a job? So let's just open another job post which is open right now. From this company list, I'll just select this one. Okay, so first of all, we need to insert something inside of the applications table, right? So we need to write the policy for this. So inside of the policies and applications, create policy, and I'll select enable insert for authenticated users only, and this should do it. Save policy. All right, there we go. We've added this policy. Let's go back to our code, and let's create a folder over here for API applications.js, and here we will write all of the endpoints or all of the API logic related to applications. All right, so let me just copy this right here again, and I'll name this function apply to job. This will take a token, and this will not take anything inside of that object, and this will take the job data, right? We've created the Supabase client. Let's import it, and now first step right here is uploading our resume, right? We're going to be uploading our resume and along with more details. So first of all, we'll have to decide on the name of that file, right? So I'll generate a random string over here. I'll say math.floor, and inside of this math.random, that is, it will generate anything between from 0 to 90,000, right? This logic here, and it will, if it's a decimal value, math.floor will select the lower decimal value. And then simply after this, I'll say file name equals resume dash random dash job data, and I'll apply the candidate ID so that it's easier to identify for which candidate that resume is. Now I'll say await and Supabase dot storage. This is how we can upload something. So storage, and where are we supposed to upload this? So from resumes dot upload, and I'll say file name, this file name right here, and comma job data dot resume. So inside of this job data, we will send the resume file as well. Now after this has been uploaded, this will actually give us if it's error or not. So error, and I'll say storage error, and if there's any error, we're just gonna use this message here. So I'll say if the storage error is there, then error uploading resume. And after this is successfully uploaded, we will get the URL for this, right? So first of all, we will need the Supabase URL. So if I show you, if we go back over here, if we have any image, let's take any of the company logo, or yeah, let's just take company logo. Let's click on get URL. You can see this has the Supabase URL, then slash storage v1 object public resumes, or company logo in this case, and then the file name. So let's just copy this thing right here, and inside of our code, I'll say const resume equals, and inside the backtick, I'll have Supabase URL. I think I'm not exporting it from there. So yeah, this URL export const Supabase URL. So this is what we will need over here. So Supabase URL slash, and this thing, storage, v1, object, public, and instead of company logo, we will say resumes. We just double check. Yeah, it's resumes. And then the file name. Okay, we have everything now. Let's just take all of this data and upload it. So here, supabase.from applications, I'll say dot insert and square bracket, and inside this curly braces, and we will say dot job data, comma, resume, and that should do it. Oh, sorry, I've used this curly braces twice. So yeah, this, and in the end, if it's uploaded, I'll say select. Just send me whatever that you've uploaded there. And then we have error, let's just say error submitting application. And yeah, that's all. That is all we need to do. Let's just take this apply to job function, and we're going to be using this very soon. So now inside of our job.jsx right here, I'll have to check if the recruiter's ID is not equal to the user ID, the currently signed in user ID, only then we will show the apply job button, right? So I have this, yeah, let's just take this condition, and over here I'll say if it's not equals to user ID, only then and I'll show a button over here, right? So instead of just showing a button, actually we're gonna be showing a drawer over here. So if you go to Shadcn UI, there's this drawer here. Yep, this. When you click on open drawer, you see it opens up a drawer for us. So this is exactly what we're gonna be using. So let's just create a new file over here in the components called apply job.jsx, RAFCE, and I'll say apply job drawer. And also we're gonna be creating a form inside of it, right, for applying to jobs. So for managing that form, I'm gonna be using React Hook form and Zod for validations, right? So let's just go on and install this. I know a lot of people like using React Hook form, so that's why I decided to add this into this tutorial. So React Hook form, we're gonna be installing Zod, and we're gonna be adding something called @hook form / resolvers. So this will help us with the compatibility with Zod. All right, great. So since this has been installed, now let's start building this component. So let's import this apply job drawer right here, and this will take a bunch of things. First of all, it will take the details of the job, yeah. Then it will take the details of the user. Then it will take a function fn job, so fetch job function. It's because after we have created the application, we want to fetch the job again to update that applicant's number, right? And we need to check over here if the user has already applied or not. So applied equals, we will say whatever job applications that we have. So job.applications.find, I'm going to try to find that user inside of that job application. So ap equals ap.candidate id is equals to user.id. If that is the case, then user has already applied, and we're not going to show this. And actually we are going to show this, but we're going to say applied, right? So let's go inside of this now, and here let's take all those things, user, job, applied, and fetch job, and I'll actually keep the apply to false by default. Now how do we create a drawer? We have seen over here. So let's copy this up, and instead of this div, I'll just paste that drawer. Let's import all of these things. So let's just copy this import, and I'll paste it here, right? And this button as well, just to see how this looks like. So now if I go back here, you're gonna see we have this open button here. If I click on it, we have this drawer opened. If I cancel it, it's gonna go away. Looks beautiful, right? Let's go on and customize it now. So first of all, here in the drawer, I'll say open. Drawer will never open if user has applied, right? So if I'll say if applied is true, then false, right? Then you should never open this drawer, else undefined. This is just a safe check, just in case any user finds a way to open the drawer. Now inside this open, I'll have a button component which will check what to display over here, right, with respect to what the condition is. So first of all, if job is open, if job is currently open, then again we'll go inside of it and we'll check if user has already applied. If they have applied, then I'll show applied, else we will show apply. And if job is not open, then we will show hiring closed. And with respect to this, we're gonna show the color of this button as well, right? So right now you can see this is apply. So here in the button for variant, I will say if job is opened and its user has not applied, then show blue, else show destructive or reddish color. And also if that's the case, then we will also disable it. So disabled equals if job is not opened or user has applied, then we will disable this button so that user cannot apply. And let's keep the size of this button as large. Let's see now. Yep, that's more like it. All right, now for this drawer, we have the title, right? And we have a description. So let's just let's just keep the description. For title, we will say apply for, let's say, front-end developer at Netflix or something like that, right? So we'll just say apply for job title and then company's name, job.company.name. And here simply we can say, please fill the form below. Let's see, click on apply. Yep, that's right. Also, one more thing, you have to add this as child prop over here so that this will expand it. Okay. Now below this, below the drawer header is where we will be writing our actual content or creating our actual form, right? So inside the form, let's have a input. Our first input is going to be for years of experience, right? So type is going to be number, placeholder is going to be years of experience, and class name is going to be flex equals 1. Let's just import it right here. And let's see. Yep, this is how we want it. Let's just give form some class name of flex column so that everything is from top to bottom, and padding 4 and padding bottom to be 0 and some gap to be 4. Let's see. Yeah. Then below this input, I'm gonna have another input which will say skills and should be comma separated. Then below that, I'm gonna have the radio group for our education, right? So, and see how we can create radio group. Here it is. And let's just take this example over here and I'll paste it. UI/radio group. Let's import the labels as well. Okay. So here, instead of this option 1 and option 2, I'm gonna have 3 options over here. First one is going to be intermediate, second graduate, and third is going to be postgraduate. Simple enough. And make sure you write these values and IDs correctly over here so that when we click on a label, this is selected as well. So let's go back and see. Over here, if we click on any of these, yep, it works correctly. Then below this radio group, I'll have an input for inputting the files, and make sure to keep file : as text gray 500 because by default it will make this background color. Then we will have a button such as submit. So instead of submit, I'll say apply. So I'll just remove this from here, and inside of the form, I'll say apply, type submit, variant blue, and size is going to be large, just like this. For drawer close, I'll say as child as well so that it takes the full value of the cancel, full width of the cancel. And okay, this looks good. Now what I'll do, I'll import React hook form and Zod and start adding the logic. So first of all, let's just create the schema by using Zod. So basically Zod is a validation library, right? It checks if the value that we have provided in the form is correct or not. So to create a schema, const schema equals z.object. So let's import this z here, and it will be imported from Zod. So inside this object, parenthesis, and inside the object, we're gonna write value for every single thing. Like for example, for experience, number of experience, right? What will it be? So z dot, this will be a number, right? So number dot min, at least experience must be at least 0, right? Not less than that. So I'll write 0, and if it's not more than 0, then I would give an error over here. Experience must be at least 0, right? And in the end, this will be an integer. So I'll say dot int, so that it converts it into a number. Then after that, I'm gonna have skills. So for skills, this will be a string, comma separated string, and minimum it has to have one value or one string inside of it, right? Else we will give the error skills are required. Then we will have the education, and it will be of type enum. So enum, I've already explained you earlier, right? This contains some limited values, and in this case it's intermediate, graduate, or postgraduate, like that. And if it's not present, then I'm gonna give a error message over here that education is required. Now for the resume, it's kind of a little bit tricky. So I'll say z dot any. First of all, I'll say any, and then whatever we get, I'll say refine. I'll refine the value to check if it's a file or not. So I'll say file and an arrow function over here. So first of all, I'll check if file of 0, because when we import a file, we are provided the file in form of an array, right? So I'll say file of 0 is there, and it should be a type of document, right? So I'll check over here that file of 0.type is equals to application PDF or application MS Word. If this is not the case, then I'll display this error message that only PDF or Word documents are allowed. Okay, so how do we use this schema? I'm gonna use React hook form. So I'll have a hook called use form, which will be imported from React hook form, just like this. And this will give us a bunch of different things. But first, inside this form, I'll say resolver. And you may remember we installed the resolver, right, from Zod. So Zod resolver. This will be imported from at hook form /resolver/Zod. And Zod resolver will take this schema as an input, right? And this will return us a few things. So const, it will return us something called as register, which is, trust me, it is the most important thing, and you'll see how. It will return us handle submit, the control, and our form state, which will contain all of the errors and some more things. You can go on and explore this. You can see is submitting and bunch of other things, right? And reset to reset the form. Okay, we're gonna need all of these things. Again, as I mentioned, it contains more things like this. If you want to get in-depth knowledge about React hook form, you can go and check out my video. Link will be in the description down below, or you can, just search for it on YouTube. Okay, now we have to take this register over here and go to each input tag one by one. So this input tag is type of experience, right? So here we'll have to do just open curly braces, ... register, and write the key over here. So we have provided different keys right here in the schema, right? So with respect to that, I'll provide it over here. So this first one is going to be for experience, and I'll say value as number to be true, because we want this value to be converted into a number, since this will be provided to us in a string format. Let's just copy it and paste it over here. For this one, it will be skills. And also one more thing, let's just remove this here, we don't need it. After each input, if there's any error, we're going to display the errors as well. So if you remember, we have taken the errors from this form state, right? So I'll say if errors.experience it's true, then we're gonna show errors.experience.message right over here. Same for skills as well. So skills, errors.skills.message. Now for this radio group, it won't work just like this, right? Because it's a third-party library, the Shadcn UI, right? So it won't work just by using register. So we have to use something called as controller, which comes directly from React hook form. And again, if you want to gain more knowledge about React hook form, you can go and follow my in-depth tutorial on it, right? So let's just copy this radio group here, and inside the controller, we have to first provide the name, which is going to be education control. It will take the control that we took from this use form over here, right? So basically this control provides us the access to the form that we're trying to manipulate, and then it will change this education field inside of it. And then we'll say render, and here simply we will render the component. So we will first take the field FIELD, and inside this we will paste this radio group that we took, right? And now simply over here we can say on value change, and we can provide field.onChange over here, and now simply it can control the value of the radio group. And also we need to, let's just not provide a default value, I'll just say ... field. It contains more options over here which will be helpful for us, like value and all, right? It will automatically set it right here. After this we will display the errors just like before. So errors.education, if there's any error, it's gonna display it right here. For the file, it's gonna be pretty simple, just like before, register and resume. Then we will be displaying the error for this resume. Now let's go on above, and right here we have created the API, right? Where is it? This apply to job. Let's just take this function and give it to our use fetch hook over here. So simply we can say use fetch, let's import it, and apply to job, let's import that as well. We will take loading error and fn. We don't need the data in this case because we are uploading the value, right? And also you might be thinking, how will we submit this form? So we will use on submit, but not just create any normal submit function. We will use handle submit, which will be coming from here, this use form, right? This handle submit, and this will take a on submit form. So I'll say on submit, and this we have not made yet. So let's just make this function. So const on submit, and this will take the data from there. And here we will call this fn apply. So inside of this, let's just provide all of the data related to our form and some additional stuff as well. So if you remember, in the applications table, okay, looks like something broke over here. Object is not a function. Let's just comment it out for a moment and see what's the error. Line number 22. So line number 22, okay, this will be object with a small o, not capital O. Okay, let's bring these back. And over here, as I was saying, so inside of our table of applications, we have much more things such as job ID, candidate ID, status, resume, skills, experience. With these are the things we're already providing, and name as well, right? So we're going to take all of the data that we've already gotten, and on top of that, we will provide the job ID, which will come from job.id. Candidate ID will come from user.id. Name, we already have the username in our platform, right? So user.fullname. Status by default is going to be applied, and resume is going to be data.resume of 0. As I told you, it provides us with the array when we upload a file, right? And also this will give us error apply. So let's just use this error and display it right above the apply. So if error apply dot message is there, optional chaining, then we will render it right here. So this is basically the error which will come from the server. And let's use the loading apply over here. After applying, we will show the loading, right? So loading apply, and we will show the bar loader. So just like this. And yeah, I think that should be it. After this has been done, let's just say dot, then we will fetch the job again. So fetch the job, and we will reset the form by using this reset function over here. Okay, I think we've done most of the stuff here. Let's see, let's check it out. If we just, let me make this smaller and use the network tab here. Now if I click on apply, let's add the years of experience to skills. Let's say Node.js and Java. Let's say postgraduate, browse for the resume. Let's add the resume, and moment of truth, let's apply. It's loading and it's refetching the job. Looks like something failed. Let's see what happened. So it was not able to upload the resume. Okay, what was the response? New row violates row level security. Okay, let's see. I think we have not set the policy for this. So storage. Okay, so inside of the policies over here, I guess we have to add a policy. So new policy for full customization. Let's just say insert and select, and bucket ID should be resume. And let's say for policy name, auth users can upload, and let's select authenticated over here. Let's click on review and save policy. Same thing we can do for our company logo as well, so that we don't have to do it later on. Okay, let's click on over here for full customization, select and insert, and click on authenticated, click on review, save policy. All right, this should do it. Let's try to upload again. Let's click on apply. Years of experience 3, skills, Node.js, postgraduate. Let's click on browse, select the resume, and now let's see. This should do it. So the resume was uploaded, and yep, we have 1 applicant, and now we can see that we have applied successfully for this job. Amazing. Now let's watch what we can do now. Let's log in as a recruiter. So sign out, log in. Okay, we have selected another ID where we were the recruiter. And now let's go to find jobs. And what was the job? I think it was the Microsoft one, right? And here we would get the applicants list. So yep, applications. Yep, we can see all of the applications right here. Amazing. Let's try to go and render these applications right below it. So close this apply job.jsx, and inside of job.jsx, right below this, I'll first of all check, are there any applications present? And this user is actually the recruiter. So I'll say job.applications.length is more than 0 and job.recruiter ID is equals to user ID. If that's the case, and I'll have a div over here. Inside this div, I'll have a h2 tag, and simply I'll say applications, and this is going to be the h2 over here, the class name for the h2. Let's see. Yeah, we can see that over here. And right below this, we will render all of the applications. So I'll say job.applications.map, and inside of this map, I will return a new application card. So application card, And obviously this doesn't exist yet, so let's just create this component. Inside of the components, I'll create a new file, application card.jsx, RAFCE, application card. And this will take the actual application in the props, and if this is the candidate's application or not, because we're going to have a separate page for the applications that current candidate has applied, right? So by default it will be false, because if this is true, the candidate will not be able to change the status of that application. So don't worry about it just right now. I'll show you in just a moment when we will go on and build that page. So okay, application card, let's just send this. The key is going to be application.id, which we will be taking from right here, and the application, the actual application that we will be sending, right? So let's see right now. Yeah, we should just see this one. So now let's go inside this application card, and here we will be simply rendering by using a card component. So card component, import it. Inside of this, I'll have a card header. Inside this, we're gonna have a card title, just like before that we have done. And if this is a candidate that who is trying to access this, right, then we will say job title at whatever is the company name. We will show this to them. But if it's a recruiter that is trying to access this application card, then I'll say application.name. That is the name of the candidate. So let's see. Yep, we can see the name of the candidate. And right below it, I'll have a download button for downloading the resume of the candidate. So size is equals 18. For this icon, the class name will be background white. Text is going to be black, rounded full, some height of width of 8, padding to be 1.5 and cursor to be pointer, just like this. In the card title, I'll provide display flex so that they can be aligned in one single line. So like this, justify between so that they are on far end of the corners. Also this job.jsx, in this div, I'll give it some class name of flex and flex column with gap of 2. Right, so that we can see all of the applications one below each other. Now to download this resume, I'll add an on click here, which will say handle download, and this logic is going to be very simple. So let me just bring in that function. So right here, the handle download, all it will do is it will create an element by using document.createElement and a tag link element. It will provide the href of the application.resume. So this is where our resume is stored, right? Link.target is blank so that this can open in another page, and link.click so that we can simulate a click. So let me show you. If we go back and click on this, you can see it will open another page with that resume right over here. So yep, you can see this resume. Cool. Below this header, I'm going to add more, details about the candidate. So card content. Inside the card content, I'll have a div over here. Inside this div, we're gonna have multiple divs. In the first div, we will write the number of years of experience, right? So I'll say application.experience, and like let's say if it's 2, then 2 years of experience. And let's add a icon over here. So briefcase business size is going to be 15. For this div, I'll give a class name of flex and gap to be 2 between them, and items to be center. So let's see. Yep, that's more like it. Let's just replicate it a couple of times. And now I'll add the application.education. Let's remove this years of experience line. And, oh, sorry, this should be the education. This should be skills. I'll just write skills over here. Let's see. Okay, this looks good. Let's just change the icon and remove this years of experience lines from here. For this one, I'll use a icon for school. And this one, I'll say boxes. Now let's see. Yep, looks good. Let's just align them in one single line. So for this div, I'll say class name to be display flex column so that they are aligned from top to bottom. In smaller screens, in the medium screens, we'll say flex row and justify between so that there's some gap between them, just like that. And you can see if we make this smaller, it becomes flex column. Great. Now at the bottom, I'll have a char. We'll divide this, and below this, in the card footer, so card footer, we will show the date, and the date will be very simple. So just like this, we'll take application.created@at field and say new date and add it inside of it and say to locale string. So now you will see, yep, just like that. And also let's give this card content some classes. So this card content, I'll say display flex column, and gap to be 4 between them so that we can get some gap between all of these, and flex to be 1 so that this takes most of the space. Yep, like that. And now, apart from this date, over here, I will have a drop down for the recruiter so that they can change the status of the application. So first of all, I'll check if this is a candidate, then I will just show them the status, right? So I'll just have a span tag over here and I'll say status and I'll show application dot status, just like this. Else we will show something else. Let's just add empty fragments for now. Let's see, we won't see anything. Let's just, if we revert it, we can see applied. Yes, status applied. And let's give this card footer some class name of flex and justify between. So yep, something like that. And for this status, I'll say class name capitalize and font bold. So now we will see it more in a bold format. Now let's implement this thing where we can change the status of our application. And for that, we would need to add the updation policy in our this policies, right, for the application. So applications and create policy and click on policy with table joins. So we're supposed to, it doesn't really matter actually, but it just gives the name automatically, policy with table joins. So basically, try to notice what I'll do over here. So I'll take that requesting user ID, right? The function that we were using. So select requesting user ID and treat it as a variable called requesting user ID, right? And since, so why we are doing it first, let's understand this. So since inside of the application table, we don't have a recruiter ID. So how do we know that we are supposed to, update this form, right? That we are authorized to update this form. So we will take the current logged in user ID that we will check the job that current application belongs to. Inside of there, we have a recruiter ID, right? So then we will compare it with that. So let me show you. So I'll say select jobs dot recruiter underscore ID. So take the recruiter ID of the job that this application belongs to from jobs. And how will we fetch the job? This is where it will happen. So where applications dot job underscore ID is equal to job dot ID. So let's understand what's going on over here again. Let's just wrap this whole thing inside the parenthesis. So basically, we're taking the currently logged in user ID and we're saying go inside the jobs table and compare if the application dot job ID is equals to the job ID, fetch that particular job that current application belongs to, and then inside of that we can compare if this recruiter ID is equals to this requesting user ID right here, and is compared by using this in over here. Okay, let's save the policy. Oh, sorry, this will be jobs.id, not job.id. Save it. There we go. Awesome. Let's get back to our code now and to API applications. And here is where we're going to write that logic. So again, let's just copy this function over here and we will update this. So here I'll just say update applications. This will take a token. It will take the job ID, job underscore ID, and the status, right, that we're supposed to update. So Supabase client, and over here Supabase dot from applications, we're gonna update. So dot update, we're gonna update the status with this upcoming value, and then we're gonna say dot equals to which job ID. So I'll say job underscore ID. So this is inside of applications table, right? So that's where we are comparing. The job ID is equals to this job ID that we are sending over here, and then we're gonna say select whatever that you have created, just send it back to me. And in the error, I'll just say error updating application status. We will also check if error is there, or if data dot length, if it doesn't return me anything, then we'll also throw this error, right? Simple enough. Let's go back to the application card, and here we're going to use our useFetch hook. So useFetch, let's import it. Inside of this, we're going to provide this update application status. Okay, let's just call it update application status. Or you could have used the update application as well. So then inside of the object, I'm going to provide the job ID as application.job ID. So job ID is a part of application table, so that's why. And let's use this load hiring status. So I'll just put it right over here at the top of the card, bar loader. Let's just see how this looks like. So let me invert the value, and yeah, this looks good. Let's invert it back. So we're gonna create a function over here for changing the status. Const handle status change. And here simply we're gonna be calling this fn hiring status, this function right here, and we'll provide the status. So status will come from here, status, and we will give it right here. All right then. So over here, I'm gonna show a select box. So we've used a select box in job, right? So let's just see. Yeah, let's just take this select box from here and we will make use of it. So instead of that, we will say select, import it from UI/select, select trigger. I'm gonna remove the class name from here, import the select value, select content, and select item. Placeholder over here is going to be application status, and select trigger will have class name of width 52. Now over here we will have 4 options, that is applied, interviewing, hired, and rejected, right? And let's just provide the default value to be application dot status. That is the current value, and we already have the on change over here, handle status change, that we have written right here. And yeah, that should do it. Let's go and see. So for that we have to become we are recruiter already. I think I forgot to invert this value. So if it is candidate, then show this, else show that. Yep, now we can see this, right? Let's just clear everything here and let's try to say interviewing. It will make a post request, this one, and yeah, I guess this has updated it. Let's go and check inside of our database in the applications table. Yep, there we go. We have the interviewing status now for this application. Amazing. So yep, we have done all of these things. We have created successfully our job page and creation of an application from candidate side and updation of the status from the recruiter side. Now what's remaining? The main thing, that is creating the job, that is posting a job, right? When we click on it, it should show up with a really good form over here where we can add the companies, add the job. So let's work on this next. All right, so to create a new job, we need to add the policy, obviously, right? So in the jobs, let's select update. Let's just add the insert policy as well. And just click on over here. It will add the authenticated here and click on save policy. There we go. It has been created successfully. Let's go back to the code and let's just add the logic for, creating the job. So let's just duplicate it right here and I'll name it add new job. We have token. We won't have anything over here, so I'll just add underscore and we will get the job data with everything inside of it. We have the Supabase token, and here I'll say Supabase from jobs and we'll say insert array, and inside of this job data. If there's an error, I'll say error creating job, and that's all we need to do. Let's take this and go back to my post job page. Right here, we're going to be creating the form, right? Just like we've created the form for apply job, we're going to be using React Hook form and Zod to create that form. So first of all, let's just plan our form, right? What is the schema going to look like? So const schema, and actually this is going to be created outside of it. Const schema equals Z, which will be imported from Zod, object, and inside this object, I'll have title, which will be a string, so z.string, and minimum it has to have at least one string, right? So 1 comma, and I'll give the error message over here that title is required. And actually same we're gonna add for other fields as well, like we will have description, location, company ID, requirements, all of them are going to be string, and we're gonna give them some error message if it's not the case. Now inside this post job component right here, again we're gonna be using use form right here. This will have the resolver just like we had earlier inside of our apply job.jsx. This resolver inside of an object. Let's import this Zod resolver. Apart from that, this can also take default values. So let's say, for example, in this case, I'll give default value for location, company ID, and requirement. So let's just give them as empty. So which is just an example just to show you how you can give the default value. It's more useful when you're creating the app using TypeScript as well. And this will give us a few things just like before: register function, control, handle, submit, and the form state with all of our errors and other stuff as well. All right, now inside of this div, I'll have a h1 which will say post a job, and it will have a similar class name just like before with the gradient title, font extra bold, text 5 XL in smaller screen, 7 XL in the bigger screens, and text to be center, padding bottom to be 8, just like this. Okay. Below this, I'll have a form. And inside of this form, I'm going to have all of these different fields. So this is very simple, right? And similar to the apply job. So let me just quickly go on and add all of these fields one by one along with the error message. So first of all, we're going to have the input for the job title. So placeholder is going to be job title, and in the register, I'll enter title, similar to what we have entered right here, right? Then we're going to have a space for adding the description, right? So regarding this, we're going to be using text area. So if you remember, we have installed text area at the beginning of this video. So like this, and this text area is very similar to this input component, just that this has more area to, write something. So like this, placeholder is job description, and in register, we're going to have the description. Okay, now we're going to be adding the location drop down so that we can select the location of the job. So in the job listing, we already have this logic written, right? So this thing states states for the location. So I'll just copy this up, and over here I'll paste it. Let's just import all of these one by one, select value. Let me just comment this out for now. On field change, we will change this value because we're going to be surrounding it by using a controller, just like I showed you earlier in apply job, right? So let's import this, import that, and state as well. Let's save this and go on and see. So this location, yeah, this location should also be commented out for now, value. So, okay, we have it. We are also going to be rendering all of the companies that exist inside of our database, right? So for that also, I'm going to add the select, but before that, we would need to fetch them, right? So here, I think I've already added the logic for fetching them. So yeah, something like this. Let's just copy it up, and in the post job, I'll paste it right here. Let's paste it here. Let's take the loading over here as well, loading, and I'll say colon loading companies. Let's import this use fetch hook, this get companies logic, use effect, and this is loaded obviously will be coming from the user. So I'll just take use user over here. I'll take const is loaded, and let's just take the user as well. Maybe we can use it somewhere. So just like this, and let's just add that loading indicator over here as well, like when the user is not loaded and when the company is loading. So I'll just say if the user is not loaded, then show this bar loader, and if the companies are still loading, then also show this bar loader. Okay, let's just take these companies and render them over here. And again, for rendering them, we have written this in the job listing over here. So yeah, just take this select from here and paste it right here. Let's comment these two out for now, and let's see, this should adapt. Yes, it's adapting. Also, by the way, there's a very crucial thing that we have to do over here. A candidate should not be able to access this page, right? So we should add that logic on the top over here. So after this has been loaded, I would say if user.unsafemetadata.role is not equals to recruiter, then we will just navigate them to /jobs, right? Then we should not be showing them this. So you can see it's loading. And since we are recruiter right now, it should not route us. Yep, just like this. Okay. So regarding both of those select, I want them in one single line. So let's wrap them in a div. So I'll say div, and let's take this div right below this company select. Let's give them some class name of flex, gap to be 4 between them, and items to be center, just like this. I'm going to have another button over here so that we can add some companies. But before that, let's just give these, let's give this form. Okay, form I've closed over here. Let's take this form and close it after this select. Yeah, that's more like it. And give this form some class names as well. Class name, flex, flex column, and some gap between them, some padding around it, and padding bottom to be 0. All right, that looks much better. And yeah, as I was saying, we will have a button over here for adding a new company, right? So right after this, I'll say add company drawer, and I'll come back to this again. So drawer, I'll add this comment, and let's just wrap these with a controller and make these work. Like, so if you see inside of the application card, no, sorry, it was apply job. So inside of the apply job, we have this controller somewhere. Yeah, over here. Let's use this controller and we will wrap these select with this controller. So controller, let's close this over here, and inside of the render, I'll just close it like this, and right inside of it, I'll have this select. So let's take this select and move it inside of this. Yes, now it looks more like it. Let me just close this. Yep, so you can see the name for this will be location. Control, we're gonna provide it over here. Let's just import this controller from React Hook form. Render will take this field, and in the value and on value change, first of all, for value we will say field dot value, and on value change I'll simply say field dot on change, and this will take care of the rest of the things. Let's just take it over here and wrap around this as well for our companies, and below select, close it like that, and close the controller form. So not this, self-closing. Yes. So now simply I'll just say field dot value, and here field dot on change. For the name, I'll say company underscore ID. Now there's one thing over here, we're gonna send the company ID and not the company's name. So if I select it over here, it's not gonna work out because in the value we have given the ID over here, right? So after selection, just so that we can see which company is selected right here, what I'll do, inside this select value, let's not make it self-closing, I'll use it like this, and inside of it I will say if field dot value has something inside of it, then I'll find that value with respect to the ID. So I'll say over here, I'll say companies dot find this ID. If it's equal to the ID, then we will return that particular field, and then we will take the name. So I'll say question mark dot name, right? Else we will just render the company. So company, save it, and yeah, now I think we should see the value after selecting. Let's select some value, and yep, we can see the value. Great. Now if there's any error after selecting these, we'll just add some errors over here. So right after this div, I'll say error.location, error.location.message, and same for company as well. Now you may remember we had requirements as well, and for requirement we were using MD editor to display the markdown, and as you can see on this screenshot on the screen, we're supposed to use this editor which will help us write the markdown. So I'll say MD editor self-closing tag, and this will also be using this controller since this is also a third-party library. So I'll just copy this controller and wrap this around it. So close this and put this thing inside of over here. Okay, so MD editor will take the value similar to this. So I'll just copy this up and paste it right here. Instead of on value change, I'll say on change, and this should be requirements. Yep. If there's any error, I'm gonna display the error, errors.requirement and errors.requirement.message. Then at the bottom, I'm gonna have a button which will help me submit the form. So button, and I'll say submit. Let's just import this button. This button will be of type variant blue, will be of variant blue. Size will be large, and class name will be margin top to be 2, and type is going to be submit obviously. Let's see. Yep, that looks great. So now you can see in the requirements, if I type anything, I can see it in the markdown format. Amazing. All right, now let's import our API that we created earlier for creating our job post. So right below this, I'll take everything over here and import this add new job. We would need all of these things: loading, error data, and function. And below this, I'll create a on submit equals, we will take the data over here, the data of the form, and we will call this fn create job, and we will send the data. So data, and apart from that, we will need some things like recruiter ID that will go along with this job, right? So recruiter ID is the current logged in user, so user.id, and we would need that this job is open. So is open to be true, and I think we provided the default value to this as well, right? So this should be optional. If you don't provide it, that's fine. Let's take this on submit, and over here in the form, we will say on submit equals handle submit, which will come from React hook form, and provide this on submit right here. Let's take this loading create job and this error create job, and we should render them right over here. So right above the button, I'll say loading create job. Let's just invert it to see how this looks like. Yeah, this looks good. And for error, it will be similar to these only. Just I'll say error create job dot message. If it's true, then show this right here. Okay, so far so good, everything. Now, when we have successfully created the job, this will return us with some data, right? So what I'll do, I'll create a use effect over here, which will only run if this loading changes, if this loading create job changes. So loading create job over here, and I'll say if data create job dot length, and I'll just add conditional chaining here. If the length is more than 0, that is the job has been successfully created, then I want the page to be navigated. So navigate to /jobs, and this navigate will come from use navigate hook. So let's just take a use navigate hook over here, const navigate, right? Like this, and this should navigate us to /jobs. Let's see if this is working or not. Again, we have one more thing remaining of adding the companies. So we need to add the company drawer, but let's just forget it for a moment. So let's add a job. Let's just say XYZ. We're just gonna enter XYZ for all of these places. Let's just say Goa, filter by company. Let's say Atlassian. Let's just write something over here and try to submit. Let me just open the network tab first, just to see if everything's working. Submit. Okay, let's see. So it's loading, and I guess it's posting the job, and the job has been posted. Amazing. Let's click on more details and let's see. Awesome. We can see the job. Great. Let's click on post a job again. And here, let's add the logic of uploading a new company over here, right? Along with the logo of that company. So for that, let's go back to Supabase and the policies. In the companies, we're going to create a new policy for inserting for authenticated user only. Okay, let's click on save policy. And now coming back over here to our code, go to API companies.js, and let's replicate this, and we're going to write the logic for uploading a company, right? So let's just say add new company. Okay, we're going to take the token and let's just add underscore. We're not going to provide anything from the hook, and company data. We're going to upload this company data. And actually this procedure right over here is going to be very similar to our apply job form. So let's go to apply job, API applications. And here we have this apply to job, right? Where we were uploading the resume. So right here, we're not going to be uploading the resume. We're going to be uploading that logo of the company, right? So let's just copy up until this. This logic will help us to write the upload logic, right? So right below this, I'll paste it. And there are a few changes that we need to make. Like instead of this job data.candidate ID, I'll say company data dot name. And here instead of resume, let's just say company, or just say logo, because it's going to be a logo of the company, right? Instead of resumes, I'll say company logo. Over here as well, I'll say company logo. Instead of job data dot resume, I'll say company data dot logo. Error uploading company logo. Instead of resume, I'll say logo underscore URL. This is the exact key inside of our database, and let's import this Supabase URL as well. Okay, cool. Now let's upload this company. So Supabase dot from companies, and I'll say insert instead of select. I'll say dot insert. Inside of an array, we have an object. We're gonna upload two things. First, the name. So name is gonna come from company data dot name and logo underscore URL. That is all. And in the end, I'm gonna say select. Let's just remove this star from here. And in the end, we'll say error submitting company. Yep, I think that's pretty much it. This should do it. Let's take this add new company and go back to our post job. Now, since we're supposed to create a drawer over here, let's just create a separate component of add company drawer. So I'll say new file, add dash company drawer. You could also say it add company.jsx, right? So add company drawer.jsx. Cool. RAFCE. I'll say add company drawer, and let's just import this add company drawer over there. So over here, I'll have the add company drawer And here, the only thing that this will require is the fetch companies function. This function right here. After a company has been created, it will call this fn companies again, right? So I'll say fetch companies equals fn companies. Okay, let's go inside this component and write fetch companies. Okay, now again here we're gonna be using React hook form and Zod to create this form. So const schema equals z from Zod dot object. Inside this object, first thing that we'll be requiring is the name, right? So name, and this will be a string, minimum one value, and company name is required if that's not present. And similar to what we've done with the resume, let me show you in the apply job. We have created this logic right over here for uploading the resume, right? Let's just copy this and I'll paste it right here. So in this case, it was application/pdf, but in our case over here, it will be image/png and image/jpeg. If you want to add GIF, you can say image/GIF, etc. And for the error, I'll just say only images are allowed. Instead of this resume, this should be logo. Yeah. Then same thing again for React hook form. I'm gonna use the use form hook over here, right? And the Zod resolver with this schema. And we will just take register, handle, submit, and form state with the errors. Now, right here, I'm gonna add the drawer code. So just like we've done in the apply job, we have written this drawer over here, right? So that's just a lot of code over here. Let's just take this drawer code from Shatcn UI. So drawer, let's copy this drawer and paste it right here. Let's import all of these things: drawer trigger, drawer content, header, title, description, footer. Let's just take this button and drawer close as well. I don't think we're going to be needing description here, so let's just remove that. Let's see if we can see anything here. Yeah, we can see the open button. If we click on it, yep, we can see a drawer now. Okay, now for this drawer trigger, I'll have a button called add company. So this will show up over there with the type button, size small, and variant to be secondary. So yep, add company, something like this. Inside the drawer content, the title is going to be add a new company. So let's just replace the title with add a new company. Then after this header, we're gonna have a form which will contain both of our title and like input for the title and for the file as well, right? The logo image. So I'll just add a input right here, import it. The register will be the name, and same for our file, register to be logo. Very simple. I've already explained all of these things before, so shouldn't be having any problem now. And I want to show you one more thing. Instead of adding the on submit in the form, we can also add it in the button right here. This will be of type button. This will not be of type submit. And the reason for keeping it type button, because if we keep it type submit, then it will refresh the page, right? And it will close our drawer. So that's why I've kept type button, and on click, I'll take handle submit from over here and create a on submit function. So let's just const on submit, and we're going to come back to this again. So yeah, variant is going to be destructive and class is going to be width 40. If I click on it, you can see just like this. So let's just, this looks ugly. Let's give this some styles, this form. So I'll say class name to be flex, gap to be 2 between them, padding to be 4, and padding bottom to be 0. Something like this in one single line. Also this cancel is small right now. So I'll just give this as child, and we don't need this submit right now. So remove that, and yep. Looks good. And let's see variant outline. Let's just get this variant secondary, and this button can be of type button so that this doesn't refresh our page as well. Yep, that's better. Now if there's any error while adding any input over here, I'll just render the errors right below the form, like errors.name and errors.name.message, and same for logo as well. Now let's go up here and import our API. So our add new company API, just like this, add new company, import it, and our use fetch hook as well. And inside this on submit form, I'm going to call this fn add company function. And inside this, we're gonna have an object which will have data, whatever data that we've kept, and the logo as well. So logo will be data dot logo And I've told you this takes the 0th index since this returns us an array, right? So we're going to take the data from here and let's make use of all of these three things. First of all, for loading and error. So just like what we've added in the post job, here we will add the error add company dot message. If that's there, then we will render it here. If loading is there, we're going to add the bar loader. Simple enough. And we're going to use this data add company. If the data has been added, then maybe we can close the drawer, or no, we can fetch the companies. We're taking this fetch companies over here, right? So I'll say use effect, and over here I'll say loading add company, and I'll say if data add company dot length, let's add optional chaining. If it's more than 0, I'll say fetch companies function right here, so that we can fetch the companies again in the post job form, right? And yeah, I think that should be it. Let's try to go and add some company. Click on add company. So yeah, add company. Let's just say roadside coder. Let's select the logo. Okay, we have selected the logo and click on add. We see the loading indicator here. Can't access lexical declaration error before initialization. Oh, it's right here. When we were writing the logic for the apply to job, right? This should be storage error, not this error, right? I think I fixed it over here in the API applications. It should be fixed over here as well. Storage error. Okay, let's try this again. Add company, site coder. Let's select a logo. Click on add. Okay, we see the loading and nothing happened. Let's try it again. Let's try to see in the network this time. Okay, 404. What's wrong? New row violates row level security policy. We did add the row level security for that one as well, right? Let's see. For inside the policies for company logo, auth users can upload. Now let's go on and add the insert policy. So auth users can insert. Click on here, add authenticated, review, and save policy. All right, now it should definitely do it. Let's click on add and let's see. Okay, the logo has been uploaded and I guess company has been uploaded as well. It didn't close the, I don't know why it didn't close it, but and didn't even fetch all of the companies. Let's refresh it. Let's see if it has been fetched or not. Okay, so it has uploaded it, but it for some reason it did not close the drawer and refetch all the companies. So let's see what's the reason for that. So over here we have the on submit. That's fine. The spelling over here is not correct. It should be dot length, and after that it should have fetched the companies. I think this was the error. Let's try it again. Let's add company name. I'll just keep it hired itself. The app that we're making is hiring. Let's click on add. Okay, we can see logo is being uploaded and great, it is uploaded I guess, and now it's loading the companies, and yep, we can see hired over here as well. Let's just try to create a job post for roadside coder. Let's say digital marketing expert XYZ. Let's add a location. Let's say I've already selected the company. Let's just say XYZ over here and click on submit. And this should create this job post and take us to /jobs. Yep, just like that. And if we scroll down, we can see, yeah, right here. And we can see the logo as well. Great. So yep, we have successfully created this post job functionality as well. Amazing. Now what's remaining is these two pages, my jobs and saved jobs. Let's first go on and create this saved jobs page. Here we will see all of the jobs that we have currently saved. So let's just try to save some jobs first. And you know what, let's just switch to candidate. I'm going to sign out and I'm going to log in with the other ID, piyush@example.com, add the password, and we are logged in. Let's save some jobs over here. I'll save this and I'll save this. And now if I go on over here in the save jobs, it should display both of those jobs over here. But first we need to obviously create the policy for that. Have I created the policy for this? Let's go to policies. For the save jobs, yep, we have the select policy. Okay, we can read it. So let's go back to the code in the API of jobs. Let's just write it over here. And again, it's going to be very simple. So let me just replicate this one itself. So I'll just select and replicate it. This will just be for getting all of the saved jobs. So I'll say get saved jobs. And this won't require anything over here because the way that we have written the logic, if you don't remember, let me show you. It will only fetch the saved jobs for that particular user, the user that is currently logged in, right? So here I'll say await Supabase, and instead of jobs, I'll say saved _ jobs. We're not supposed to insert it. And in the select, I'll say everything. Now we're gonna take jobs, right? But this will only provide me with the candidate ID and the job ID, nothing else. So we would need additional details. So I'll say job, and from the jobs table, I want everything, right? And even inside of that, we need company details, right? So company colon companies, and we need the name comma logo underscore URL. Make sure you've written this correctly. Let me just check. Yeah, I think this is good. Error fetching saved jobs. Yep. Let's take this to our saved jobs page or saved job.jsx. Here again, very simple logic, just like we've done earlier. Let's just take our hook of use fetch, get saved jobs, and we have all of these things over here. While this page is loading, I'm going to show the bar loader. So I'll take the use user and take the is loaded, and let's just take it from where? Let's just take it from job listing. So I'll just this is loaded. I'll copy this and paste it right here and import the bar loader. And similarly, just like we were fetching any company, like fetching the list of companies after is loaded, right? So we will use the same logic here as well. So paste it here. After this is loaded, I will say fn saved jobs. Also, along with this, if the saved jobs is loading, I will show this bar loader. Okay. Here inside this div, I'll have the title of saved jobs, right? Just like this, the way we have done earlier, gradient title, font extra bold, text 6XL and 7XL for the bigger screens. Let's see. Yep, we can see the saved jobs. Below this, we will render all the saved jobs. So we've rendered our job card over here in the job listing, right? So let's just take that code, this code right over here. I'll take this and paste it over here. So if loading saved jobs is false, then we will render this, and instead of this jobs, I will say saved jobs this time. Import this job card over here. Insert this job ID, I will take let's say saved over here and provide saved here and over here as well. And to check if it's saved or not, obviously since we are here, then this is saved, so I'll just send true from here. And on job saved, if you remember, we have created this prop, and I told you that we will be using this later on, so now it will be used. So now on job saved, I'm gonna fetch all of the saved jobs again. So fn saved jobs, and if there are no saved jobs, so I'll say no saved jobs found. That's all. Let's change this crying emoji to something else, something like this. Okay, let's see. Job.description is undefined. Okay, why is that? So job equals saved. Okay, this shouldn't be saved. It should be saved dot job, because the details of the job are inside of this job key, right? Over here. So now this should work. Yep, we can see this over here. Amazing. If I click on it, will this remove it from here? Okay. Yep, it's loaded, and yeah, it has removed that saved job from here. Great. Let's build this page over here, my jobs page, where we can see all of my current applications. All right, so the different thing about this page is that this will be different for both candidate and the recruiter. For candidate will see their applications over here, and recruiter will see their created jobs over here, right? So I'll go back to the code and go to this my jobs page. And here, just like before, we will take the use user hook over here, and then I'll just show the loader. If this is not loaded, just show the bar loader over here. Okay, and then we will add the condition. So first of all, I'll have the h1 tag with all of the same class names, just like before, and inside this I will check if the recruiter is candidate or not, right? So I'll say user.unsafe metadata.role if it's equals to candidate. Then I'm going to show my applications, else I will show my jobs title. And same thing is going to happen below over here, below the h1. I'll say if user.unsafe.metadata.role is equals to candidate, then I will show a component called, let's say, created applications, else we will show another component called created jobs. So obviously these both doesn't exist yet, so let's go and create these inside of the component. New file for created applications.jsx RAFCE created applications. Let's get another component for created jobs.jsx RAFCE. I'll say created jobs. let's import both of these right here. So created applications and created jobs. And now you're going to see it's going to show my application for the candidate. So let's see, created applications. We're just going to render all of the applications for that particular candidate. So for the applications, we've already added this select, right? So now let's write the logic for this. And I'll go to the API applications over here. We have this update application status. Let's just duplicate it and just say get applications over here. This will just take a token and the user underscore ID. We have the Supabase client, and from the applications, we don't gonna need the update. We say equals to candidate underscore ID is equals to the user ID. And what will we select? So let's move the select up there. We will select everything, and from the jobs, so job, so just like we've done with this where is it, the save jobs, right? So let's just copy this line. We're going to do the same thing over here. So for job, I'm going to go inside the job. So this applications as well has that job ID related to foreign key, right? So I'll take just the title of the job, and for the company I'll just take the name. We don't need the logo. That's all. And over here, let's just remove this. If there's any error, I'll say error fetching applications. Okay, let's take this, go back to myjobs.jsx. No, actually I need to go to created applications.jsx, and here I'll use the hook, use fetch and the get applications, and this user ID we will get from this user object from use user const user, and that's pretty much it. We have the function data and the loading. So let's just fetch this function. So inside of use effect, I'll call this function. So when it loads for the first time, I'll say fn applications, and that's all. If these applications are loading, then I'm just going to add that bar loader that we added in the parent component, and it will show up just like this. Now to render all of these applications, we're just going to go to the jobs page. Where is it? Job.jsx, and we have rendered all the applications here, right? So let's just copy this logic and come back over here. Instead of this, I'll just render it. Let's just import the application card. So we have job over here, so we are not going to need this now since we have directly this applications variable. And since we are looking at the applications of the candidate, you may remember we have this is candidate tag. So we can say is candidate to be true, or you can say equals true, but this is also going to be considered as true. Let's just give this div some class name of flex column and gap to be 2. Let's see. Yeah, this candidate is applied for one job, so that is what he is saying. And you can see status is interviewing right here. Amazing. Let's go on and work on the created jobs. So let's create actually the API jobs for this. And right here, you can see we have get saved jobs. So similarly, we're going to have get my jobs over here as well. So let's just duplicate this. And I'll say instead of this, I'll say get my jobs. Right? Inside of this, we will say jobs over here, and we will only fetch for that particular recruiter. Right? So below this, I'll say dot recruiter ID and the recruiter ID, which will be coming from right here. And we're not going to be needing this, so we'll just going to be taking it out from the company. Let's remove this parenthesis, and so that we have the logo and the logo URL. And error fetching jobs. And yeah, I think that should do it. Let's take this and go back to over here, created jobs. First of all, we're going to take the user object from use user. Below this, I'm going to have our hook along with this get my jobs API that we created right now. So let's fetch all of these. And for the recruiter ID, obviously we're going to give the current user dot ID. And also let me just log in with the recruiter ID now. Let's sign it out. Click on login, and I've signed in with the recruiter ID. Let's go to my jobs. And here you can see instead of my applications, you're going to see my jobs now. Yep, just like this. So now over here, we've taken this fn created jobs. Let's just call it inside of the use effect. Right here, I'll call fn created jobs. And just like previously, we're going to take this loading. So let's just add this loading over here, loading created jobs and import the bar loader. Inside this div, I'll render all of my jobs. So we've done this multiple times before. So let's just take this from job listing. So let's just take this ID. Oh, sorry, I mean div. Paste it over here. And instead of jobs, I'll say created jobs. So created jobs, import the job card. And also over here, if you remember, we've discussed that we have this is my job tag, right? So this is now is going to be useful over here. So is my job, so that we can see the things like, you know, trash icon, so that we can delete the job. So okay, I think let's just see the styles. Yep, I think styles are good as well. Let's go back and see. Yep, we can see all of the created jobs by this recruiter. Almost all of the jobs are created by him. This won't work right now. So let's go on and add this logic for deleting the job. So let's see if I've added the logic over here. Yeah, we have not. Let's create the policy. And a recruiter can only delete their own job, right? So if the recruiter ID is equal to the current logged in user. So I'll say delete. And instead of this, I'll just add the previous line of requesting user ID is equals to recruiter underscore ID. Okay, let's save this and go back to my code. Inside of API jobs, let's replicate this function over here. I'll say delete job. This will take a token and a job underscore ID. Now here from jobs, I'm gonna say dot delete. Delete which column? The column which is equal to the ID job underscore ID, whichever ID that we will provide it. And in the end, I'll say dot select. Okay. So error deleting job, we can say over here. And yeah, I think this should be good. And I'll take this delete job and actually I'll go to the job card. Over here, we're going to add this logic. So right here, I'll import the delete job inside of this use fetch hook. And I'm going to use this function to delete the job, right? So let's create a function over here, const handle delete job equals async await fn delete job. So this function right over here. And we can call this on job saved over here. And I think it should be called on job action, since this is not just being used for save, it's being also used for delete. So but you can say change this on job save to on job action probably. So yeah, let's take this handle delete job and provide it to this trash icon. I'll say on click to be handle delete job. And meanwhile the job is being deleted, I'll just show a loading indicator probably right over here. So I'll say if loading delete job is true, show the bar loader right here. And yeah, let's see, let's check it out. On job action, let's see if we have given this did job. We're not going to be needing this save in it, right? So I'll say on job saved is equal to fn created jobs, just to fetch all of these jobs again after a job is deleted. Let's see if I try to delete this job. Okay, this delete query has been fired and that job was deleted. Amazing. So with this, we have successfully created our job portal called Hired. Congratulations, you have just created an industry level production grade project. Let's go on and deploy this project on Vercel. But before doing that, we need to push it onto a GitHub repository, right? So I'm going to go to github.com and create a new repository. Let's call it Hired. Okay, let's create repository. And over here, you can see the steps for pushing it to the GitHub. So I'll just copy. I'll add the remote origin. Actually, before that, we need to do git init. So I'll say git init and just make sure that in git ignore, we have added the .env file because I don't want the .env file to get pushed. Then I'll say git add dot paste that remote origin that we have copied. Git commit -m will give the commit message. Deployment git push origin master to push this code to GitHub right over here. And you're gonna see, yeah, this is pushed. If we refresh this page, we can see all of the code is right here. Now this is the temporary repository that I'm creating just to show you how you can create a repository for this. For this project, I already have created a repository over here called job portal. So this is the repository that I will go on and deploy to Vercel, right? So let's open vercel.com, click on add new and project. We need to select our GitHub repository from over here. So let's select job portal, import Project name, let's call it hired. Framework is Vite. And yeah, that's all. Let's select the environment variable and add all the environment variables. So let's see. First for Vite Supabase URL, add this. Then we're gonna add another environment variable. So let me just add all of these quickly. Okay, I've added them all over here. And I think, yeah, that should be it. Let's click on deploy. Let's see if this deploys or not. Okay, we can see the build logs over here. If there's any error, you're gonna see this error right here. Okay, building for production, and it is successfully completed. Okay, let's see. Let's continue to dashboard, and it's gonna provide us with some link probably over here. Also, one more thing that you need to do over here is let's come back to over here, and for this, go to settings, and inside of the environment variables here, for the clerk publishable key, click on edit and make sure to change it to pk_live instead of pk_test, right? And just save it. And now if we go back to our website, try to log in with Google, there we go. We are successfully logged in. Let's try to go to find a job. I am a candidate, and great. Everything seems to be working just fine. Amazing. If you like this video, give this video a huge fat thumbs up, and definitely check out my front-end interview preparation course. This is the only course that you will ever need to prepare for your front-end interview. Link is in the description down below.